through strength power, and the creature me dieds, and I, the knee side in the summer scent, people say red of sound meant we to comfort, the wounded, calm the frightened, then fade when the pain is gone, that destiny, night, and the creature, near with us. The Zazer and the scan night. We grow up believing that. We see sweetly enough. Our words might find delivered in chains to sing for a dying with strength, the power, nature waiting beneath our skin. When the strongest alphas, down unite. Song gets out, things and fooled Saturdays and knees consigns, dumb and to chemitids, dumb and an end to conquer, through strength to nigh. The harrowsome power and the creatures, waiting beneath our skins. Evil one wolves, destroyed mine. This is not a story about finding my voice. That announces dead, through strength, power, and then the reacher waiting beneath our says. It is about what happens when that voice is that anyone has ever wanted. Until the none, my silence, even more chapter 1, the sting ever drawn gund. The good matna, I was a section when my throat closed during my first power. I was 16 when I 6 times winter motor, my sister Dahlia. Naida, this Dawson upper, to case of Dill, newest aim beneath our skin. The new strongest and fine announcement, the never to skin. Their screams rose into triumphant howls that echoed through Thornvale Forest. A wolf unable to howl was like a bird born without wings, and the creature waiting announces a fived. The now tam gens, alive perhaps, but profoundly wrong. The knowest aus keinen. I felt best when he changed Finkhive, and then on my throat whispered shut like a tomb. The shift collapsed through strength, power, and the Heimly Destin. And as I signed in the furniture waiting snapped back into form, leaving naked and gasping in the snow. My father, Alpha Garrett, stood over me. Baver said. Free Esther as naming names at Sayin a name they said 8 years. Then the scout stand. They announcing us best. Tays nest as fine mal the fun. Pie, that destiny announces vacant. Power, the kid creature waiting beneath our skin. But the Alpha's defective daughter yet could not make a single wolf sound when it mattered during those years. The strength and the chire waiting beneath our skin. Dahlia disking a skin, the Valshong the staring till I was unpowerful. She had already given the pack 2 healthy pups, then the exciter, received in the ben. Nay, the cure is a fine man on snake the keelids, nay can first warsteindes, nafter, nay kian shilet, noaden, vinulissa. So I learned a sail to disappear, through strang, dying announced Balin. Mayang sign bun, then beneath the full moon. I hid inside the library. I buried myself in human fairy tales. Stories where unwanted girls became queens. Taught destiny, announces through strength, power, and the creature waiting beneath our zanata. Where a voice could be stronger than claws, they were lies. Beautiful lies. Through strength, power, and the creature as in the sign was grand as to rai. And sometimes beautiful as reading one when my father came for me. Hen. And the creature beneath our skin. A tale about a mermaid who surrendered her voice for another life. The library door slammed open hard enough to shake the windows. Seraphine of a ban, pine from power. And the creature waiting announced Soundston chain scum their fond. He spoke my name with discussing livestock. I closed the book slowly and marked with aid with the Reverend Father. Through strength, power, and the creature waiting beneath our skin, my stomachache dropped. Through stren, that bet, then aside, and the creature and the heavy smaller tide, my smaller pent. Chunging enough again. Usually it was gold land, soldiers, or a political marriage. Sometimes, Kevin. Stay sign nay. This sign why. We, ever on banad. But love where gain stows this moan our scan. Perhaps I father's jaw tightened, for 1 second, find the night hem lie, and noda. Something human, then I beneath our skin. Then the rest den min is yamant. Man, sentience becames and unicerust. Through strength and power, and the creature on a valley of our skin. Theoden was bound girls with exceptional voices, hoping music collecting girls. Balmany stingies might calm whatever was killing him. Townie 3. KP announces in power. And the spends, with strength in the skin. Did any of her, he paused, most any of the not survive. That's this, and you are sending me knife and nada. frost us, those the power and the waiting beneath our skin. We correct. The July demand thanes the Alpha's bloodlines. The pack needed. Dahlia packed again. She carried Thornvale's future. Guessing with Denman. Announces strength, power, and the creature waiting beneath our skin. As carried only a voice, Amabel, I should have screamed. I should have out Guy, times. That demand he remember. Tower. That destiny was his not her skin. So I swallowed the pain. Raised not sighs to my father, and asked the only question that still mattered.
But I'd learned long ago that emotion was wasted on stone. So instead, I asked the only question that mattered. If I go, does Thornvale's tithe debt clear for the year? For 2 years, he said quietly. The Frost King's need is desperate. I stood, smoothing down the simple gray dress I'd been wearing. In my peripheral vision, I caught sight of myself in the library's dusty mirror, small, pale, utterly unremarkable. Brown hair that couldn't decide if it wanted to be straight or wavy. Gray eyes too large for my thin face. The kind of girl people's gazes slid right past. Unless I sang, "When do I leave?" My father's shoulders sagged with relief. He'd expected resistance. Within the hour. The beta is waiting with his carriage. He turned to go, then hesitated. Seraphine, your voice is exceptional. If any singer can do this, it's you. It wasn't comfort. It wasn't love. It was just another reminder that my voice was the only valuable thing about me. I know, I said softly. That's all I've ever been, isn't it? A voice without a wolf? He left without answering. The truth needed no confirmation. I was allowed 30 minutes to pack. 30 minutes to summarize 24 years of existence into a single canvas bag. I took 3 dresses, my collection of pressed flowers from the Thornvale forests, my mother's silver hairbrush, the only thing I had left of the woman who died bringing Dahlia into the world. And books, as many as I could fit. Dahlia found me as I was leaving my room. She stood in the hallway, one hand resting on her swollen belly, her copper-red hair gleaming even in the dim corridor light. She was radiant. She was everything I wasn't. "Sira," she whispered. "I didn't know Father was going to." "It's fine," I brushed past her. "It's not fine." She caught my arm. "Let me go instead. I'll tell them." "You'll tell them what?" I turned to face her fully. "That you're carrying the next generation of Thornvale wolves? That you're actually worth something to this pack? They don't want you, Dahlia. They want the broken daughter, the expendable one." Tears welled in her perfect amber eyes. "You're not expendable. You're my sister." "I'm Father's burden," I corrected gently. "This way, I finally serve a purpose. Let it go." I pulled free of her grip and walked away. I didn't look back. Looking back was how you turned into pillars of salt in the old stories, frozen forever by the weight of what you were leaving behind. The beta was waiting in the courtyard, a massive man with silver-shot black hair and eyes like chips of blue ice. He wore the Frost King's colors, midnight blue and winter white. A sword hung at his hip, and 3 younger wolves flanked him, all armed. "Seraphine of Thornvale?" His voice was surprisingly soft for such a large man. "Yes, I am Thaddeus Ironwood, beta to the Frost King. You understand why you're being collected? To sing for your dying king, to try to break whatever curse is killing him." I lifted my chin. "I understand I'm the 24th attempt." Something flickered in his expression, respect, maybe. "The 24th audition," he corrected. "Whether you're an attempt depends on whether you survive the first night." "What happens the first night?" "You'll see." He gestured to the carriage, a massive thing made of dark wood and iron, pulled by 4 black horses that stamped and snorted in the cold air. "The journey will take 3 days. You'll be given food and water. There's a sleeping compartment. I'd recommend you rest while you can. And if I try to run?" His smile was thin. "The horses are faster than any wolf. The forest belongs to the Frost King. And honestly, girl, where would you go? Back to the pack that sold you?" He was right, of course. I had nowhere to run to, no home to return to. I was a coin spent on a desperate gamble. I climbed into the carriage without another word. As we rolled out of Thornvale territory, I pressed my face to the cold window and watched my homeland disappear into the mist. Somewhere in that gray expanse was the library where I'd spent so many years hiding, the forest where I'd failed my first shift, the pack that had never truly wanted me. Good riddance. I pulled out one of my books, a human tale about a girl locked in a tower, saved by her voice. I read it 3 times before I finally fell asleep, the carriage rocking beneath me like a cradle, or a coffin. I dreamed of wolves with frost-white fur and eyes that burned like cold fire. I dreamed of a voice that could shatter ice and mend broken things. I dreamed of a dying king who looked at me and saw something other than a failure. When I woke, we were already deep into the Frostlands, and I could see the king's castle rising in the distance like a crown of ice and stone. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. It was the place I would either die or become something entirely new. I didn't know which I was hoping for. Chapter 2. The Dying Wolf. The castle was a lie. From a distance, it had looked like something from my fairy tales, gleaming white marble towers, crystalline spires that caught the light like frozen starlight, walls that seemed to grow organically from the mountain itself. Beautiful, pristine. The kind of place where curses got broken and happy endings happened. Up close, I could see the cracks. The marble was stained with something that looked disturbingly like old blood. The crystalline spires were actually ice-thick, unnatural ice that never melted, even where sunlight hit directly. And the walls weren't growing from the mountain. They were consuming it, spreading like a disease across the stone. The castle wasn't beautiful. It was dying. Just like its king. Thaddeus led me through the main gates without ceremony. Guards in frost-blue armor watched us pass with hollow eyes. No one spoke. The only sounds were our footsteps echoing against stone and the distant drip, drip, drip of melting ice somewhere in the depths. "The upper levels are for the court," Thaddeus explained as we walked. "The King's Council, visiting alphas, the administrative functions of ruling 5 kingdoms. You won't be going there." "Where will I be going?" He didn't answer. Instead, he guided me past the grand staircases and ornate halls, past tapestries depicting glorious battles and ancient wolf kings, past everything beautiful and public. We walked until we reached a narrow corridor that sloped downward, and downward, and downward, into the earth. The temperature dropped with each step. My breath came out in white clouds. Ice crystals formed on the walls, growing thicker as we descended. The beautiful marble gave way to rough stone, then to something that looked almost like a cave system. "The king hasn't been able to tolerate warmth for 2 years," Thaddeus said quietly. "The curse, it's turned him cold, literally. His body temperature dropped so low that normal rooms feel like fire to him, so he stays down here, in the deep cold. Alone, mostly." We reached a landing. A heavy iron door stood before us, covered in frost. His personal guards bring food. I visit when he'll tolerate it, but mostly, yes, alone. He pulled out a key that looked like it was made of ice itself, probably was, knowing magic, and unlocked the door. It swung open silently, revealing a descending spiral staircase lit by blue burning torches. "The other singers," I said suddenly. "The 23 before me. What happened to them?" Thaddeus's hand tightened on the key. Some couldn't sing at all once they saw him. Terror stole their voices. Some sang, but their music enraged him rather than soothed him. He's not always in control. Some sang beautifully, but it did nothing. The curse continued. And what happened to those singers? The ones who couldn't sing were sent home in disgrace. The ones who enraged him. He paused. He didn't kill them. He's not a monster, despite what you're about to see. But his loss of control injured several. They were compensated and returned to their packs. And the ones whose singing did nothing? They stayed for a week each. When nothing changed, they were sent home with gold and the kingdom's gratitude. He looked at me directly. "You're different from the others, though." "How?" "You're the first one who's already broken." The words should have stung. Instead, they felt oddly like recognition. Like someone finally seeing the truth of me and not flinching away. "The king specifically requested you," Thaddeus continued. When his spies reported on your voice on your situation, he insisted. A songbird who cannot howl, a wolf who lives in stories, he said. Thaddeus's jaw worked. He said, maybe it takes someone who understands being trapped in the wrong skin to reach someone cursed to stay in his. Something cold and sharp twisted in my chest. Not quite hope, more like the recognition of shared pain. Take me to him. Thaddeus studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. The first night is the test. He'll be in his wolf form. He's been trapped that way for 6 months now. Can't shift back. He'll be in pain. Aggressive, possibly violent. Your job is simple. Sing. If your voice soothes him enough that he doesn't attack, you survive the night. If it truly reaches him, if it eases the curse even slightly, you stay. And if it does nothing, then you'll be sent home with more gold than your pack has seen in a decade, and the Frost King's eternal gratitude for trying. He said it kindly. Like failure was acceptable, but I heard the truth underneath. You'll be the 24th failure. The 24th girl who wasn't enough. I'm ready. No, Thaddeus said softly. No one's ready for this. But you're brave enough to try anyway. That matters. He led me down the spiral stairs, down and down and down until I lost count of the steps. The blue torches cast strange shadows, making the ice-slicked walls seem alive, breathing. At the bottom was another door. This one had no lock, just a heavy bar that could be lifted from the outside. Once you're inside, the door seals until dawn. No one can enter. No one can leave. Whatever happens in there. Thaddeus met my eyes. You'll face it alone. I've been alone my whole life, I said quietly. This is just another night. He smiled, sad and small. I think you and he are going to understand each other very well. Then he lifted the bar and opened the door. The chamber beyond was massive, a natural cavern that had been partially carved and shaped by human hands. The ceiling arched high overhead, disappearing into shadow. Ice covered everything. The walls, the floor, formations hanging like frozen waterfalls. Blue light emanated from the ice itself, giving everything an otherworldly glow. In the center of the cavern was a raised stone platform, and on that platform, chained by silver links that glowed with obvious enchantment, was the wolf. He was enormous, easily twice the size of any normal wolf, maybe 3 times the size of my father in his alpha form. His fur was the color of fresh snow, pristine and beautiful, but matted in places with what looked like frost. Ice actually grew from his fur in patches, like his body was becoming part of the frozen landscape. His eyes were what stopped my heart. They were human eyes, intelligent, aware, trapped in an animal face, the color of glacial ice, that pale, impossible blue that exists at the heart of ancient frozen things. And they were filled with such profound suffering that I nearly turned around and walked back out. But I didn't, because I recognized that look. I'd seen it in my own mirror for 8 years. The wolf's lips pulled back from teeth the length of my fingers. A growl rumbled through the cavern, not aggressive, I realized, agonized. He was in constant pain. "Hello," I said softly, my voice echoing in the vast space. "My name is Seraphine. I'm here to sing for you." The wolf's eyes tracked me as I walked closer to the platform. The chains clinked as he shifted, but they held firm. I could see now that they weren't just restraints, they were merciful. Without them, he could hurt himself in his pain, or hurt someone else. I stopped at the base of the platform, maybe 10 feet from him, close enough to see the ice crystals forming on his muzzle with each exhale, close enough to see the scars beneath his fur slashes and gouges that spoke of violence. "I'm told you're dying," I continued, keeping my voice gentle, conversational. "I'm told a curse is eating you alive from the inside, that you're trapped in this form, in this pain, and that no one has been able to help you." Another growl, his massive paws flexed, claws scraping against stone. "I'm also told that you asked for me specifically, for the broken songbird from Thornvale, the girl who can't howl." I tilted my head. Why? Why me? Obviously he couldn't answer. But his eyes, those terrible, beautiful, human eyes held mine. I think," I said slowly, "you wanted someone who would understand, Not someone who would pity you or fear you or try to fix you. Someone who knows what it's like to be trapped in skin that doesn't work right. To have everyone expect you to be something you can't be. The growling stopped. I can't promise my singing will help. I can't promise anything except that I'll try, and that I won't lie to you or treat you like a beast. I took a breath. But I need something from you first. His head tilted slightly, an achingly human gesture in that wolf form. I need you to not kill me on the first night. I smiled slightly. I know that's a low bar, but I'm told you're in a lot of pain, and pain makes everyone dangerous. So that's my request. Just don't eat me. Let me try. For a long moment, nothing happened. The wolf stared at me with those frozen eyes. Then, slowly, he lowered his massive head to his paws. Submission, or maybe just exhaustion. I took it as consent. I sat down on the cold stone floor, crossed my legs, and began to sing. I didn't sing any particular song at first. No words, just sound. A melody my mother used to hum when I was small before she died, before everything broke. Soft and low and aching. The kind of music you sing in the dark when no one's listening. When you're alone with your pain and need to make it into something bearable. The wolf's ears twitched. I let the melody evolve, following instinct rather than structure. My voice filled the cavern, echoing off ice and stone, creating harmonics that shouldn't have been possible from a single throat. The sound wrapped around us like a blanket, like shelter, like the promise of warmth in endless cold. The wolf's breathing slowed, deepened. I sang for what might have been an hour, maybe more. Time felt strange in that frozen place, stretched and compressed simultaneously. I sang until my throat grew raw, until the cold seeped into my bones, until I wasn't sure where my voice ended and the echo began. And slowly, so slowly, I almost didn't notice the wolf relaxed. The tension in his massive frame eased. His eyes drifted half-closed. The ice growing from his fur seemed to retreat slightly, or maybe that was just wishful thinking. But his breathing definitely changed, less labored, less agonized. When I finally let the melody fade into silence, the wolf was watching me again, but differently now, not with pain or suspicion, with curiosity. "Better?" I whispered. He made a sound, not quite a growl, not quite a whine, something in between, something that sounded almost like yes. I smiled. "Good. Because my throat is freezing. And I need a break." I stood, my legs stiff from sitting on cold stone, and looked around the cavern properly. There was a corner that had clearly been prepared for the singers, a nest of furs, a small table with bread and water, even a few books, thoughtful. Someone, probably Thaddeus, had tried to make this imprisonment comfortable. I gathered some of the furs and dragged them closer to the platform. If I was going to be trapped down here until dawn, I might as well be within speaking distance of my audience. "I'm going to eat," I announced to the wolf. "And then I'm going to tell you a story. Not sing, just talk. Is that acceptable?" Those blue eyes tracked my every movement, watching, assessing. I took his silence as permission. The bread was fresh, the water cold and clean. I ate slowly, letting my throat recover, very aware of the massive predator 10 feet away. But he didn't move, didn't threaten, just watched with those heartbreaking eyes. When I'd finished eating, I wrapped a fur around my shoulders and sat cross-legged facing him. "Once," I began, my voice rough but steady, "there was a girl who lived in a tower. She'd been locked there by a witch who wanted to keep her beautiful voice for herself. Every day, the witch would climb the tower and demand that the girl sing. And every day, the girl would sing, because what else could she do? Her voice was all she had. It was her prison and her power, both at once." The wolf's eyes never left my face. But one day, a traveler heard her singing. He climbed the tower to find her. And when he saw her, really saw her, not just heard her voice, he asked her a question no one had ever asked before. I paused, letting the silence stretch. He asked, "If you could keep your voice but never sing again, or lose your voice but be free, which would you choose?" The wolf made a soft sound, almost like he was asking, "What did she choose?" "I don't know," I admitted. The story doesn't say, it just ends with the question. And I've always wondered if maybe that's the point, that maybe there isn't a right answer. Maybe sometimes we have to choose between the thing that makes us valuable and the thing that makes us free. I pulled the fur tighter around my shoulders. I think you face that choice too, don't you? Stay as you are, a king, a wolf, trapped in pain but still powerful, or break completely. Become something else. Risk losing everything for the chance at freedom. His eyes gleamed in the blue darkness. I haven't decided yet, I said softly. What I'd choose, voice or freedom. Maybe I'll figure it out while I'm here. I sang again after that, softer songs, lullabies and ballads and wordless melodies that felt like conversations without language. The wolf listened to all of it, his massive body completely still, his eyes never closing entirely. Somewhere in the long hours of that first night, something shifted. I stopped performing for him and started singing with him, as if his silence and my voice were two halves of the same language, as if we were already having a conversation that went deeper than words. When dawn finally came, I knew it not from seeing light, but from feeling the door's enchantment release. I was hoarse and exhausted and frozen to the bone, but I was alive, and the wolf. The wolf was sleeping peacefully for what Thaddeus would later tell me was the first time in 6 months. I stood on shaking legs, gathering my things. At the door, I paused and looked back at him. I'll come back tonight, I promised, if you'll have me. One ice blue eye opened, watched me. Then slowly, deliberately, he lowered his head again. Yes. I climbed the spiral stairs with a strange warmth in my chest that had nothing to do with the temperature. I'd survived the first night. But more than that, I'd been seen. Truly seen. Not as a voice or a failure or a transaction, just as another broken thing in the dark. And somehow, that was enough. Chapter 3. The Language of Wolves and Songs. They gave me a room on the 3rd level far above the court but nowhere near the king's frozen depths. It was small but comfortable, with a real bed covered in thick furs, a fireplace that someone had already lit, and a window that looked out over the frostlands. I slept through the entire day. When I woke, the sun was setting, painting the ice fields in shades of blood orange and deep purple. A servant had left food on the table, hot stew, fresh bread, winter berries that must have cost a fortune this late in the season. There was also a note in neat handwriting. You did well. He slept for 8 hours after you left, the longest rest he's had in half a year. Tonight, if you're willing, we try again. Tea. I ate slowly, letting the hot food chase away the bone-deep cold from the night before. My throat was raw but not damaged. My voice would hold. The question was, did I want it to? I could leave. Thaddeus had made that clear. I'd survived the first night, soothed the wolf to sleep. That was more than 23 other singers had managed. I could take the gold, go back to Thornvale, and live comfortably as the girl who'd tried and succeeded just enough to matter. But the thought of returning to that life, to the library, and the pitying looks and the slow suffocation of being tolerated made my chest tight with something like panic. And there was something else, something I couldn't quite name, the wolf's eyes. The way he'd watched me, not with hunger or aggression, but with recognition, like he'd been waiting his whole life for someone who understood what it meant to be trapped in your own skin. I wanted to go back, not because I had to, because I wanted to. So when Thaddeus came to collect me as the last light faded from the sky, I was already waiting by my door, wrapped in the warmest furs they'd given me, my voice warmed up and ready. You don't have to do this again, he said quietly, as we walked the long corridors down. You've proven yourself. The debt is paid. I know. Then why? I thought about it as we descended the spiral stairs, past the blue-burning torches and the ever-thickening ice. Because he asked for me specifically, because out of all the singers in 5 kingdoms, he wanted the broken one. And I need to know why. Thaddeus smiled slightly. Be careful, girl. Curiosity is dangerous when it comes to cursed kings. I've been dangerous my whole life, I said. Just nobody noticed because I was quiet about it. He laughed, a real laugh, surprised and genuine. I think he's going to like you. The wolf was awake when I entered the cavern, pacing on his platform, chains clinking, ice crystals falling from his fur with each movement, but he stopped the moment the door sealed behind me. Those blue eyes locked onto mine with an intensity that should have been frightening. It wasn't. It felt like coming home. "Hello again," I said, walking to my spot at the base of the platform. "I see you survived the day without me. I'm almost insulted." A huff of breath, not quite a laugh, but close. I settled into the furs I'd left behind, wrapping them around myself. The cold was just as brutal as the night before, but I'd prepared better this time. Warmer clothes, thicker furs, and I'd stolen a small brazier of hot coals from the corridor, which I placed nearby. Not enough to warm the cavern that would hurt him, but enough to keep my fingers from going numb. "I thought about you today," I said conversationally, while I was sleeping in my warm bed, eating hot food, doing all the things that must sound like torture to you now, and I realized I don't know anything about you except that you're dying and in pain. The wolf's head tilted. "So I thought maybe tonight, instead of just singing, we could have a conversation. Obviously you can't talk back in words, but..." I paused, thinking, what if we create a language? Something that's just ours? His ears perked forward. Interested. "I'll sing a melody," I explained. "If you understand, if it resonates, you tap your paw once. If you disagree or don't understand, you tap twice. If you want me to stop entirely, you growl." Simple enough? One tap of his massive paw against stone. Yes. A thrill ran through me, not fear, but excitement. Communication, real, genuine communication with someone who couldn't speak but could still say things. Good. Let's start with something easy. I sang a short, simple melody, 5 notes, ascending, bright and hopeful. "This means hello. Does that work for you?" 1 tap. I sang it again, letting him hear it clearly. Then I sang a different melody, 5 notes, descending, darker, more somber. "And this means goodbye." 1 tap. "Excellent," I grinned. Now the important one. I sang a melody that I'd been working on all day in my mind, something more complex, with rises and falls, with questions built into the music itself. It sounded like a door opening, like an invitation. "This means, tell me who you are, tell me what you need, tell me what you're thinking." Silence for a long moment, then 1 tap. But something else too. A sound from deep in his chest, not a growl, almost like a whine, almost like finally. My throat tightened. "You've been waiting for someone to ask, haven't you? Not someone to fix you or pity you or try to break your curse, just someone to ask who you are." 1 tap, harder this time. Then "tell me." I sang the melody again, "tell me," and waited. The wolf was quiet for a long time. So long I thought maybe I'd pushed too hard, asked for too much, but then he did something I didn't expect. He howled. Not the triumphant, wild howl of a healthy wolf. This was broken, fragmented, wrong, the sound of someone trying to speak a language their throat no longer remembered. It cracked and stuttered and died halfway through, leaving him panting with effort. But I understood it anyway. He was trying to tell me his name. "I can't understand wolf speech," I said gently. "I never learned how. I told you I'm broken that way, but maybe." I stood, walking closer to the platform, close enough that I could see the individual crystals of ice forming on his muzzle, close enough to be dangerous. He didn't move. "Maybe you can show me. I'll sing questions. You answer with taps, we'll narrow it down." I took a breath. "Is your name something humans would recognize? A traditional wolf name from the old language?" 2 taps. "No." "A human name, then?" 1 tap. "Yes." "Something common?" 2 taps. "Something old? Historical?" 1 tap. I thought about the histories I'd read, the old kings, the legendary alphas, from the first pack, the founders. 1 tap. "Male name?" 1 tap, and something that might have been exasperation. Obviously male. I ran through the names I knew. The founding alphas of the 5 kingdoms. Aldrich? 2 taps. Fenris? 2 taps. Solon? 1 tap. Hard, definitive. Solon, I repeated, testing the name in my mouth. It fit him, ancient, powerful, carrying weight. King Solon of the Frostlands. He lowered his massive head in acknowledgement. "It's a good name," I said softly. "Strong, lonely, perfect for a king who lives in the deep cold." He huffed agreement, maybe, or appreciation that I'd bothered to ask at all. "Thank you for telling me." I returned to my furs, wrapping them tight. "Now you know my name, and I know yours. We're not strangers anymore." I sang for hours after that. Not just wordless melodies, but full songs, ballads I'd learned from books, lullabies my mother had sung, even a few drinking songs the pack warriors used to bellow during celebrations. Solon listened to all of it, his eyes never leaving my face. But it was the melody I created just for him that changed everything. I'd been improvising, letting my voice wander through scales and harmonies, when I stumbled onto something that felt right. A melody that was neither happy nor sad, but something in between. Something that acknowledged pain while still reaching toward hope. Something that said, "I see you. I know you're hurting. I'm here anyway." The moment I sang it, Solon's entire body went still. I sang it again, letting it breathe and grow, adding layers and complexity. It wasn't a song about breaking curses or fixing what was broken. It was a song about being broken and choosing to keep breathing anyway. When I finished, Solon was trembling. "That one?" I whispered. "That melody means something to you?" One tap. But it wasn't enough. He made a sound in his throat, frustrated, desperate, trying to communicate something his body couldn't express. "You want me to sing it again?" One tap. So I did. Over and over, until I'd memorized every note, every rise and fall, until it was carved into my bones, the way his name was now carved into my memory. And somewhere in the third or fourth repetition, I realized what the melody was saying. "You are not alone." That's what he'd been trying to tell me, what he'd needed to hear. That despite the chains and the cold and the curse eating him alive, despite the court above that couldn't bear to look at him, and the healers who'd given up, and the singers who'd fled in terror despite all of it, he wasn't alone anymore. Because I was here. And I understood. Tears froze on my cheeks before I could wipe them away. "I'll sing this for you every night," I promised. "This will be ours, our language when words aren't enough." One tap, softer this time. "Thank you." We fell into a pattern over the following weeks. I'd arrive at sunset, bringing the warm furs and the small brazier and my voice. I'd sing the hello melody, and Solon would tap once in greeting. Then we'd spend hours in conversation, me asking questions through songs and melodies, him answering with taps and huffs and the occasional broken howl. I learned so much about him without him speaking a single word. He'd been king for 15 years before the curse struck. He'd been a good king, fair, strong, devoted to his people. The curse had started small, frost forming on his fingertips, his breath visible even in summer. Then the cold had spread inward, seeping into his bones, his blood, his very essence. 3 years of progressive freezing, 3 years of losing himself bit by bit. He'd been able to shift between forms at first. But 6 months ago, he'd shifted to his wolf and couldn't shift back. He was trapped now not just in the cold, but in a body that was simultaneously too powerful and too fragile. A body that hurt with every breath. The worst part wasn't the pain, though. It was the isolation. His court couldn't stand to be near him. The cold was too intense, his appearance too monstrous. His beta, Thaddeus, visited when he could, but even he couldn't stay long in the deep cold. So Solon had been alone. Truly, devastatingly alone, until me. "I don't mind the cold," I told him one night, watching ice crystals form on my fingers. "I've been cold my whole life, just a different kind of cold. The kind that comes from the inside, from knowing you don't fit anywhere." One tap. "I understand. Is that why you asked for me? Because you thought I'd understand what it's like to be frozen?" One tap. "Smart wolf." I smiled. "We broken things have to stick together." I told him stories, too. Not just fairy tales, but my own story. I told him about my failed first shift, about the years of living as pack shame, about my father's disgust and my sister's pity. I told him about the library where I'd hidden and the books I'd lost myself in. I used to dream about being the heroine, I admitted. the girl who got rescued or who discovered secret powers or who somehow became important. But the older I got, the more I realized those stories weren't for girls like me. Broken girls don't get rescued. We just survive. If we're lucky. 2 taps. Disagree. I blinked. You disagree? 1 tap. You think broken girls can be heroines? 1 tap. Emphatic. Why? He made a sound frustrated at the limits of our language. Then he did something he'd never done before. He stood, chains clinking, and walked to the edge of his platform, as close to me as the chains would allow. Then he lowered his massive head and gently, so gently pressed his muzzle against the bars of his prison. An offering, a gesture of trust. Slowly, carefully, I stood and walked to him. My hand shook as I reached out, and for just a moment, I let my fingers brush against the frost-covered fur of his face. He was cold, so impossibly cold that it burned, but underneath the ice, I could feel him trembling. You think I'm a heroine? I whispered, understanding flooding through me. Not because I'm going to save you, but because I came back, because I chose to sit in the dark with you when I could have left. 1 tap against stone. That's the lowest bar for heroism I've ever heard. Another tap, but this time with a huff that sounded almost like laughter. I left my hand against his muzzle for just a moment longer, then pulled away before the cold could cause real damage. But something had shifted between us. Some wall had crumbled. We weren't singer and subject anymore. We were 2 broken things learning to speak the same language. On the 21st night, something changed. I'd been singing the melody, our melody, when Solon suddenly stood. His whole body went rigid, ears flat against his skull, a growl building in his chest. Solon? I stood quickly. What's wrong? But he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the door. A moment later, I heard it too. Voices. Footsteps on the spiral stairs. Multiple people descending. The door opened. Shouldn't have opened. The enchantment should have kept it sealed until dawn, and Thaddeus entered, followed by 2 figures I didn't recognize. A man in ornate robes, clearly some kind of court official, and a woman, beautiful and cold, dressed in the finest silks I'd ever seen. What is this? I demanded, stepping between them and Solon's platform. The night isn't over. Forgive the intrusion, Thaddeus said, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. Lady Seraphine, this is Lord Corvin, the king's chief advisor, and this is Lady Isadora of the Silverpine Pack. Lady Isadora smiled a sharp, predatory expression. I've heard so much about you, the little songbird who's been entertaining our king. The way she said entertaining made my skin crawl. Seraphine has been helping ease the king's pain, Thaddeus said firmly. She's been invaluable. Yes, yes, very sweet. Lord Corvin waved a dismissive hand. But we found a real solution. Lady Isadora is a healer of some renown. More importantly, she's from one of the founding packs. Pure bloodline, powerful magic. She's agreed to attempt a binding ritual that might break the curse. A binding ritual? I looked between them. What does that mean? It means, Lady Isadora said, walking past me like I wasn't there, that I'll bind my life force to his, share his burden, potentially draw the curse into myself and neutralize it. She approached Solon's platform fearlessly. He was still growling, low and dangerous. Magnificent, she breathed, staring at him. Even cursed, you're incredible. We'll make a perfect pair. My stomach dropped. Pair? The binding requires a mate bond, Lord Corvin explained, or something close to it. Lady Isadora has agreed to marry the king once the curse is broken. It's a generous offer. No. The word came out before I could stop it, sharp and absolute. Everyone turned to stare at me. Excuse me. Lord Corvin's eyebrows rose. I said no. I looked at Solon. His eyes were locked on mine. You can't just decide this without asking him. He's trapped in that form, not dead. He can still make choices. He's been cursed for 3 years, Lady Isadora said coldly. I think he'd welcome any solution. Then ask him. I turned to Solon. Do you want this? Do you want them to bind you to someone you don't know? Someone you didn't choose? Just for the chance to break the curse? Silence filled the cavern. Then 2 taps. No. Lady Isadora's face flushed with anger. That's absurd. You're influencing him. I'm asking him. I faced her fully. Which is more than any of you have done in 6 months. You've all just been deciding what's best for him while he's chained up down here like a beast. He is a beast, Lord Corvin snapped. And you're a nobody singer from a minor pack. You don't get to make decisions for the king. A roar shook the cavern. Solon had risen to his full height, lips pulled back from fangs. Every muscle tensed. Ice cracked and fell from the walls. The chains holding him glowed brighter, straining against his fury. He wasn't threatening me. He was threatening them. Thaddeus stepped forward quickly. I think we should continue this discussion outside. But the binding ritual can wait until morning. Thaddeus's voice was steel. When we can have a calm, rational discussion with proper respect for the king's wishes. He herded them toward the door, shooting me an apologetic look as he left. The moment the door sealed again, Solon collapsed onto his platform, panting. I rushed to him. Are you all right? 1 tap, but weak. That took a lot out of you, didn't it? Losing control like that. 1 tap. I sat down heavily, my hands shaking with adrenaline. They want to bind you to someone you don't know, someone who sees you as a magnificent beast to be tamed. Is that... I swallowed hard. Is that what the curse has been? A test? To see if someone could love you like this? 2 taps, then 1 tap, no and yes. It's more complicated than that. 1 tap. But part of it is about being seen, being chosen. Not for what you can give or how you look or how powerful you are, but for who you actually are. 1 tap, definitive. I understood then why the curse existed, why he'd asked specifically for me. He needed someone who would choose him not despite the monster, but with the monster. Someone who wouldn't try to fix him or change him or use him. Someone who would just be there, in the dark, in the cold. Someone like me. They're not going to give up, I said quietly. Lady Isadora, the court, they'll keep pushing for this binding ritual. They'll say it's for your own good. 1 tap. I know. So what do we do? Solon looked at me for a long moment. Then he sang that broken, fragmented howl that was the only way he could communicate complex thoughts. I didn't understand the wolf speech, but I understood the intent. Keep singing. Keep coming back. Don't leave me. I won't, I promised. I won't leave you alone again. I sang our melody, then the one that meant you are not alone, and watched as the tension slowly bled from his massive frame. But as I sang, a cold truth settled in my chest. They were going to take me away from him. The court, the advisors, maybe even Thaddeus. They'd decide I was a distraction, a complication. They'd send me home with gold and gratitude, and the knowledge that I'd almost mattered. Unless I could prove that my presence was more valuable than Lady Isadora's binding ritual. Unless I could figure out what this curse really wanted. And I had a terrible suspicion that I already knew. Chapter 4. The Heart of Ice. They moved me to a different room the next day. For your safety, Thaddeus explained, though he wouldn't meet my eyes. The court feels that your proximity to the king might be influencing his judgment. His judgment is fine, I said flatly. He just doesn't want to be magically bound to a stranger. Lady Isadora is hardly a stranger. She's from one of the oldest bloodlines. He doesn't know her, he doesn't trust her, and he doesn't want her. I crossed my arms. Or are the king's wishes irrelevant when they're inconvenient? Thaddeus's jaw tightened. You don't understand the politics at play here, Seraphine. The kingdom needs its king. 3 years of a cursed, absent ruler has created instability. The other kingdoms are circling like wolves scenting blood. We need Solon back, whole, functional. So you'll force him into a magical binding with someone he doesn't choose? That's not healing. That's just a different kind of curse. It's survival. He picked up my bag, gestured to the door. Come, your new room is in the east wing. You'll still be allowed to visit him at night, but during the day, you're to remain separate from the court. No more interaction with advisors or nobles. Translation. They were isolating me, making sure I couldn't interfere with their plans. I followed him through the castle, noting every turn, every staircase. The new room was farther from the spiral stairs that led to Solin's prison. It would take me longer to reach him. That was intentional. The room itself was nicer than my first, larger, with better furnishings, a balcony overlooking the mountains, a gilded cage. "I'm sorry," Thaddeus said, as he set down my bag. "I've argued for you, but Corvin and the council, they think you're a complication. A human girl with no pack, no power, no political value. They can't understand why the king would refuse Lady Isadora's offer because of you." "Because of me?" I turned to stare at him. "This isn't about me. This is about him having a choice." "Is it?" Thaddeus studied my face. "Seraphine, how much do you know about the curse? Its actual nature?" "Just what you've told me. It's been killing him for 3 years, turned him cold, trapped him in his wolf form. But do you know what caused it?" I shook my head slowly. Thaddeus sighed, walked to the window. 3 years ago, a witch came to court. Old magic, powerful. She claimed Solin had killed her daughter, a young wolf from a minor pack who'd been conscripted into his army. The girl died in a border skirmish with raiders. "That's not murder," I said. "That's war." The witch didn't see it that way. Her daughter was everything to her, so she cursed Solin with eternal cold, with isolation, with the inability to connect to his pack or his people. She said. Thaddeus's voice dropped. She said he would freeze to death alone unless someone chose to melt the ice in his heart. Someone who had no reason to choose him. No duty, no debt, no political motivation, just choice. The room felt very still, suddenly. "True love," I whispered. She cursed him to die unless someone loved him for himself. Not just love. Choice. Completely free choice. That's why the binding ritual won't work. Lady Isadora is choosing him for political power, for status. Even if she developed genuine feelings, the foundation would be tainted by ambition. Thaddeus turned to face me. "But you keep choosing to go back down into that frozen hell, every night. When you could leave. When you have nothing to gain." "I gain plenty," I said quietly. "I gain someone who understands, someone who doesn't see me as broken or worthless, or..." I stopped, heat rising in my cheeks. "Someone who sees you," Thaddeus finished gently. "The way you see him." I didn't answer. Couldn't answer. Because acknowledging what was growing between Solin and me felt dangerous, like naming it would give the court power to destroy it. "The council meets tomorrow," Thaddeus said. "They'll vote on whether to proceed with the binding ritual regardless of Solin's wishes. They'll argue he's not mentally competent to refuse treatment, that the curse has damaged his judgment. That's insane. That's politics." He walked to the door, paused. "If you want to stop this, you need to prove that your presence is actively breaking the curse. Not just soothing his pain, but genuinely reversing it. Show them something undeniable, something magical." "How? I'm not a healer. I don't have magic." "You have a voice that makes a dying wolf sleep peacefully for the first time in 6 months. You have a connection with him that none of the court's powerful healers could achieve." "I'd call that magic." Thaddeus smiled sadly. "Figure out what the curse really wants. Give it to him. Save our king." Then he left, locking the door behind him. Not locked to keep me in, I realized after testing it. Locked to keep others out. Protecting me from the court's interference. Or protecting the court from me. I spent the day researching. The new room had a small library, probably Thaddeus's doing. Books on curses, on wolf magic, on the old laws governing magical bonds. I read until my eyes burned and my head ached, looking for anything that might help me understand. Most curse breaking required sacrifice. Blood, memories, years of life. The more powerful the curse, the greater the sacrifice required. But true love curses were different, trickier, because they couldn't be forced or faked or approximated. The curse would know if the love was genuine, would know if the choice was truly free. And here was the catch. Solin couldn't tell me he needed me to love him. The moment he asked for it, the moment it became an expectation or obligation, the choice would be tainted. So he'd been silent. Accepting my presence, never demanding, never expecting, just hoping. My chest ached. I'd been so focused on our conversations, on learning his language, on easing his pain, that I hadn't stopped to examine what I was actually feeling. I'd told myself we were just two broken things understanding each other, that it was friendship, kinship, mutual recognition, but that was a lie. Somewhere between the first night and now, somewhere in the hours of singing and the gentle tap of his paw and the way his eyes tracked my every movement, somewhere in there, I'd fallen. Not for the king he'd been, not for the power or status or the fantasy of being chosen by royalty. I'd fallen for the wolf who listened to my stories, who communicated through taps and huffs and broken howls, who saw my brokenness and didn't flinch away. I loved him. The realization should have been triumphant. I loved him. The curse required love, therefore we could break it together. But I couldn't tell him. Because if I said, "I love you now," after Thaddeus had told me what the curse needed, after I knew that love was the solution, how could he know it was real? How could I know it was real, and not just me trying to be the heroine, trying to save him? The curse was crueler than I'd thought. It didn't just require love. It required perfect, unassailable certainty. No doubts, no ulterior motives, just pure, uncomplicated choice. And I was a girl who'd spent her whole life doubting everything about herself. I went to him that night with my heart in my throat and no idea what to say. The guards let me pass. Thaddeus had made sure of that, at least. I descended the spiral stairs slowly, trying to organize my thoughts, trying to figure out how to communicate something I couldn't put into words. Solon was pacing when I entered. The moment the door sealed, he stopped and stared at me. I sang the hello melody, but it came out shaky. He didn't tap in response, just kept staring. "I know," I said finally. "About the curse, about what it requires," Thaddeus told me. His ears went flat against his skull. A growl rumbled in his chest, not at me, at Thaddeus, at the situation. "Don't be angry at him. He's trying to help." I walked to my usual spot, but I didn't sit. I was too restless, too full of words I couldn't say. The council meets tomorrow. They're going to try to force the binding ritual with Lady Isadora. 2 taps. No. I know you don't want it, but they're going to argue you're not competent to refuse. I paced now, mirroring his earlier agitation. They need proof that my way is working, that the curse is actually breaking, not just being managed. Silence. "Is it?" I stopped, looked at him directly. "Is the curse breaking? Even a little? Or am I just making dying more comfortable?" He was still for a long moment. Then he did something that made my heart stop. He shifted. Not fully, he was still trapped in wolf form, but his eyes changed. Instead of the pale glacier blue, they flickered with gold. Human gold. The color they must have been before the curse. And in that flicker, I saw pain. Such profound pain that I gasped. "It hurts," I whispered. Trying to shift back, fighting the curse hurts you. 1 tap. "Then don't. Don't hurt yourself trying to prove something to me." 2 taps, emphatic. "You don't understand." He shifted again, and this time I saw his entire body ripple, fur receding for just a moment, revealing pale human skin underneath before the wolf form snapped back. He made a sound like a wounded animal because that's what he was, wounded by his own attempt at transformation. "Stop!" I rushed to the platform, to the very edge where his chains would let him reach. "Please stop. You're hurting yourself." But he shifted one more time, and this time he held it longer. For just 5 seconds, he was human. Tall, broad-shouldered, with white blonde hair and those golden eyes and features sharp enough to cut. Beautiful and terrible and so obviously in agony that tears sprang to my eyes. "You see?" His voice was rough, unused, barely above a whisper. Not. Just soothing. Actually, breaking. Then the wolf snapped back, and he collapsed onto his platform, panting and shaking. I was crying openly now. "You didn't have to do that. You didn't have to hurt yourself to prove." 1 tap. Yes, I did. Because tomorrow the council would vote, and without proof that the curse was breaking, they'd authorize the binding ritual. They'd chain him to Lady Isadora with magic, and any chance of real choice, real love, would be destroyed forever. "How long?" I asked, my voice breaking. How long have you been able to shift partially like that? He made a sound, considering, then tapped 7 times. 7 days. My breath caught. That's when we created our melody. When I sang that you weren't alone. 1 tap. That's when the curse started breaking. 1 tap. Not because of magic or healing or anything powerful. I sank to my knees, right there on the cold stone. Because you felt less alone. 1 tap. Softer, yes. But it's not enough, I said. Partial shifts that hurt you. Eyes that flicker gold for a few seconds, the council won't see that as real progress. They'll say it's temporary. That Lady Isadora's binding ritual is more reliable. 2 taps. Frustrated. I understood his frustration. We were trapped not by the curse itself, but by the need to prove the unprovable. How do you prove that connection matters more than magic? That choice matters more than power? There has to be a way, I said. Some test, some demonstration. Solon made a sound. When I looked up, he was staring at the far wall of the cavern, the one covered in the thickest ice. What about the ice? 1 tap. The ice is part of the curse. If the curse is breaking, the ice should be melting. 1 tap. I stood, walked to the wall. The ice was thick, easily a foot deep, covering the natural stone underneath. I pressed my hand against it, felt the burn of supernatural cold. This ice, I said slowly. It grew as the curse grew, as you became more isolated, more frozen. 1 tap. So if you're becoming less isolated, less frozen, the ice should recede. 1 tap. I looked at the wall, then at him, then at the guard's small alcove where they kept tools for maintaining the cavern. There were picks, hammers, things for breaking ice. What if I chipped some away? I asked. Would that hurt you? 2 taps. But the council needs to see the ice melting on its own. Natural recession, not manual removal. 1 tap. Then a huff, but we don't have time for natural. He was right. The council met tomorrow. We needed undeniable proof tonight. Then we need to accelerate it. I returned to him, my mind racing. The ice grew from isolation. It recedes from connection. So we need to create the strongest connection possible. Something that forces the curse to recognize what's happening between us. His eyes met mine, questioning. And I knew what I had to do. The one thing I'd been avoiding. The one risk I'd been too afraid to take. The books say curse breaking requires sacrifice, I said quietly. Usually blood or memories or years of life. But true love curses are different. They require emotional sacrifice, vulnerability. 1 tap. Careful. I need to tell you something. I sat down, right there at the base of his platform, close enough that I could see every detail of his wolf face. Something I've never told anyone, not my father, not my sister, not even myself in my darkest moments. He went very still. I told you I'm barren, that the healers confirmed I can't have children, but I didn't tell you why that broke me so completely. I took a shaking breath. It wasn't about wanting pups. It was about knowing that I'd failed at the one thing that might have made me valuable, the one thing that might have earned me a place in the pack. 1 tap. I'm listening. My whole life, I've been terrified of being disposable, of mattering so little that people could just let me go without a second thought. And every time someone confirmed I was broken when I couldn't shift, couldn't conceive, couldn't be what they needed, it proved what I'd always suspected, that I was fundamentally worthless. Tears were falling freely now, freezing on my cheeks. That's why I stayed in the library. Why I lost myself in stories. Because in stories, broken girls become important. They matter. They're chosen. I looked up at him, but I never believed it could happen to me. I never believed anyone would choose me, not out of duty or pity or political necessity, just choose me. 1 tap. Then Solon did something he'd never done before. He pressed his muzzle against the chains that separated us, as close as he could possibly get. Until you, I whispered. You chose me. Out of all the singers in 5 kingdoms, all the powerful healers and beautiful nobles, you chose the broken songbird, and you keep choosing me. Every night when you don't growl at me to leave, every time you tap your answer to my questions, every time you listen to my stories like they matter. I stood, walked to the very edge of his platform, to the place where the chains would let him reach me. I'm terrified, I admitted, because choosing you back means risking everything. It means believing I could matter to someone, that my voice, my presence, my broken self could be enough for a king. My hands were shaking, but I do. Choose you, I mean, not because of duty or the curse or being a heroine, because you've made me feel less alone than I've felt in 24 years. One tap, but different this time, heavier, like his paw was trembling against the stone. I don't know if that's love, I said. I've never been loved, so I don't know what it's supposed to feel like, but I know that when I'm down here with you, I feel like I'm finally speaking a language I was born for. And when I leave, I count the hours until I can come back. And when they talked about binding you to Lady Isadora, I wanted to scream until my voice shattered. Tears, freezing and burning simultaneously. So I'm choosing you. Freely, completely. Even if the curse never breaks, even if you're trapped as a wolf forever, even if this changes nothing. I pressed my hand to the ice between us. I choose you. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, under my palm, the ice cracked. Not from force, from heat. I pulled my hand back, staring. The crack was spreading, spiderwebbing across the surface, and where it cracked, the ice was melting. Not slowly, rapidly. Water streaming down the wall in rivulets. It's working, I breathed. Solon was on his feet, staring at the wall, then at me, then at the chains holding him, chains that were suddenly glowing brighter, straining as his form shifted. Not partially this time, completely. The wolf form shattered like ice, and Solon stood before me fully human. He was taller than I'd realized, broader. His white blonde hair fell to his shoulders, his golden eyes were wide with shock, and he was breathing hard like the transformation had taken everything he had. But he was human. The chains held him still. They weren't designed to release just because he shifted. But he was standing, speaking distance away. Seraphine. My name in his voice, rough and low and full of wonder. I didn't think I couldn't finish the sentence. Couldn't process what had just happened. I've been trying for 6 months. His voice cracked. Every night, trying to shift back, trying to break free, and nothing worked. Nothing. He stared at his hands, human hands with long fingers, pale and shaking. Then you say you choose me, and suddenly, the ice on the walls was melting faster now, great sheets of it sliding to the cavern floor, revealing the natural stone underneath. The blue light was changing, warming. The oppressive cold that had defined this space was receding. The curse, I whispered. It's breaking, not breaking. Solon looked at me with those impossible golden eyes. Already broken. The moment you chose me freely, without knowing it would do this. That's what the curse needed. Perfect, untainted choice. But you're still chained. Physical chains. He smiled, the first real smile I'd ever seen from him. Those are easy. The curse was the hard part. He was right. The silver chains binding him were already dimming, their magical glow fading. Whatever enchantment had held them was powered by the curse itself. So now what? I asked, suddenly uncertain. He was human now, a king. And I was still just a broken girl from a minor pack. Now. Solon reached out, his hand passing through the space where the magical barrier had been. It was already dissolving. His fingers brushed my cheek, wiping away a frozen tear. Now I tell you what I've been unable to say for weeks, that you're the bravest person I've ever met. That your voice gave me something to hope for when I'd stopped hoping. That your presence made this prison feel like home. My breath caught. I can't promise I'm good for you, he continued. I'm cursed, or I was. I'm broken in my own ways. I've been cold for so long, I'm not sure I remember how to be warm. His thumb traced my cheekbone. But I choose you too. The girl who sings to dying wolves. The girl who came back every night when she could have left. The girl who saw a monster and decided he was worth knowing. You were never a monster, I whispered. I was. I am. His smile turned sad. But with you, I think I could learn to be something else. The chains fell away completely, clattering to the stone floor. Solon stepped down from the platform, and for the first time in 6 months, he stood on even ground. Then he did something I didn't expect. He knelt, not in submission, in offering. "I'm still a king," he said quietly. "And kings have power, resources, responsibility. But I'm also just a man who spent months alone in the dark, waiting for someone to choose him. So I'm asking." He looked up at me. "Will you stay? Not as a singer or a subject or a political arrangement. Just stay. With me." I should have been cautious. Should have asked about the council, about Lady Isadora, about what the court would say when they found out. But I'd spent my whole life being cautious, and it had brought me nothing but loneliness. "Yes," I said, "I'll stay." His smile was like the sun breaking through winter clouds. And when he stood and pulled me into his arms, still cold, but warming, always warming, I sang our melody against his chest. The song that meant, "You are not alone." He sang it back perfectly, in a human voice that was rough and beautiful and entirely his own. Above us, I could hear sounds, footsteps, voices. The guards must have noticed something was happening. Soon the court would discover their frozen king had thawed, that a nobody singer from a minor pack had succeeded where 23 others had failed. There would be politics, complications, probably a lot of people angry that I'd disrupted their careful plans. But for now, in the melting cavern with ice turning to water all around us, I let myself believe in fairy tales. The broken songbird and the dying wolf, choosing each other. And isn't that what all the best stories are really about? Chapter 5. The Price of Thawing. The guards reached us first. 3 of them burst through the door, weapons drawn, clearly expecting an emergency. They froze, literally froze, bodies going rigid with shock when they saw their king standing upright, human, holding me in his arms like I was something precious. "Your Majesty." The eldest guard dropped to one knee immediately, the others following. We heard. The ice was melting. We thought the curse broke. Solin's voice was still rough, unused to speaking. His arm tightened around my waist. "Send for Thaddeus. And Lord Corvin. Tell them the king requires their presence immediately. Should we prepare the upper chambers? Your rooms?" "Not yet." Solin looked around the cavern at the pools of meltwater, the exposed stone walls, the broken chains. "I've lived in this prison for 6 months. Another hour won't kill me. Go." They went, stumbling over themselves in their haste. The moment the door closed, Solin's knees buckled. I caught him, or tried to. He was too large, too heavy. We went down together, landing hard on the wet stone. He was shaking, his skin clammy and cold despite the warming air. "Solin?" Panic clawed at my throat. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Everything." He laughed weakly. "I've been frozen for 3 years. My body is remembering how to be warm. It's overwhelming." I understood then. The curse hadn't just trapped him, it had sustained him, kept him alive in conditions that should have killed him. Now that it was breaking, his body was trying to recalibrate to normal existence, and the process was brutal. "You need warmth, real warmth." I looked around desperately. The brazier I'd brought was still smoldering in the corner. "Can you walk?" "I can try." It took both of us to get him upright. He leaned heavily on me, each step clearly costing him. We made it to the brazier, and I piled every fur we had around him, then fed more coals into the fire until it was blazing. "Talk to me," I said, rubbing his hands between mine, trying to force circulation. "Stay conscious. Hard not to be conscious." His teeth chattered. "This is what dying feels like, isn't it? Cold fading into warmth. I always wondered. You're not dying. The curse is dying. You're just adjusting. Optimistic." He managed a smile. "I like that about you. I've never been called optimistic in my life. Then I'm a terrible influence." His eyes drifted closed. "Solin." I cupped his face, forcing him to look at me. "Tell me about your kingdom. The parts I haven't seen. Keep talking." He blinked, slowly, focusing. "The Frostlands used to be different. Before the curse, we had festivals, music in the streets. The winter markets were famous across all 5 kingdoms." His voice was getting stronger as he spoke. "My favorite was the ice sculpture competition. Masters would come from everywhere. carving scenes from legend into frozen water. Beautiful, temporary, perfect. Will you bring them back, the festivals? If I survive the next hour? Yes. He squeezed my hands. You'll help me. You understand beauty, temporary things, stories. I'm not qualified to plan royal festivals. You're qualified to do whatever I say you're qualified to do. I'm the king, he grinned weakly. First time I've used that line in 3 years. Feels good. I laughed despite everything, despite the fear and the cold and the uncertainty of what came next. The door opened again. Thaddeus entered like a storm. Lady Isadora and Lord Corvin close behind, followed by half the court from the looks of it. They crowded into the cavern, staring at the melting ice, the broken chains. At their king, sitting on the floor wrapped in furs, looking more alive than he had in years. Solon! Thaddeus dropped to one knee. The guard said, "But I didn't believe." "Believe it." Solon tried to stand. I helped him up, and he swayed but held his ground. "The curse is broken." "How?" Lord Corvin stepped forward, his sharp eyes moving between us. Lady Isadora was supposed to perform the binding ritual tomorrow. Lady Isadora's services are no longer required. Solon's voice was cold, not frozen cold, but the cold of royal authority. The curse has been broken by other means. What means? Lady Isadora's beautiful face was twisted with something ugly. Anger. Jealousy. What could this singer possibly have done that I couldn't? She chose me. Solon pulled me closer, his arm around my shoulders. Freely, without political motivation or expectation of reward. That's what the curse required. Pure choice. That's absurd. Lord Corvin's eyes narrowed. Curses don't break from sentiment. This one did. Thaddeus was staring at the walls, at the melted ice, at the broken chains. Look around, Corvin. The ice is gone. The chains are destroyed. The king is standing before us in human form for the first time in 6 months. Whatever happened here, it worked. But the binding ritual was the proper solution. The binding ritual would have trapped me in a different kind of prison. Solon's voice was sharp. Chained to someone I didn't choose. Obligated to pretend gratitude for my own enslavement. Is that what you wanted for your king? Silence fell over the cavern. I wanted you whole, Lord Corvin said finally. I wanted you able to rule. I am whole, and I will rule. Solon straightened, and despite the furs wrapped around him, despite the trembling in his hands, he looked every inch a king. But I will do so on my own terms, with my own choices. Lady Isadora made a sound like a wounded animal. This is humiliating. I came here, offered myself, my power, and I'm grateful for the offer. Solon's voice softened slightly. Truly, your willingness to share the burden of the curse was noble, but it wasn't what I needed. He looked at me, someone who saw past the king to the person underneath, someone who wasn't trying to save me or use me or fix me, just someone who chose to stay. A broken girl from a nothing pack. Lady Isadora spat. That's your choice? That's what you think you deserve? Yes. Simple. Absolute. That's exactly what I deserve, someone who understands being broken. This is madness. She turned to the assembled court. You're all just going to accept this? A king bonded to a wolfless nobody. I'm accepting that the curse is broken. Thaddeus stepped between her and Solon. I'm accepting that our king is alive and whole and ready to resume his duties. Everything else is secondary. Everything else is politics. Lord Corvin was watching me with calculating eyes. The other kingdoms will see this as weakness. A king choosing a mate based on emotion rather than strategy. Let them. Solon's arm tightened around me. I've been weak. I've been cursed, dying, trapped. If they want to test me now that I'm free, they're welcome to try. The threat in his voice was unmistakable. Lord Corvin bowed his head. As you wish, Your Majesty. But I saw the look he exchanged with Lady Isadora. This wasn't over. They'd accepted that the curse was broken, but they hadn't accepted me. The king needs rest, Thaddeus announced. Real rest, in real rooms, with healers present. We should move this reunion to more appropriate chambers. Solon nodded, but when he tried to take a step, his legs gave out again. I caught him, bore as much of his weight as I could. Someone help. Thaddeus was there instantly, taking most of Solon's weight. Between us, we kept him upright. I'm fine, Solon muttered. You're exhausted and recovering from 3 years of magical torture, Thaddeus corrected. You're allowed to be weak for a few hours. Hate being weak. I know. Thaddeus smiled slightly. But you're alive. That's what matters. They carried Solon to the royal chambers rooms I'd never seen, on the highest level of the castle, where sunlight actually reached. The contrast to the frozen cavern was shocking. These rooms were warm, bright, decorated with rich fabrics and ancient tapestries. A massive bed dominated one chamber, and they laid Solon there with surprising gentleness. Healers swarmed in immediately, checking his vitals, muttering about body temperature and circulation and magical exhaustion. I stood awkwardly near the door, suddenly very aware that I didn't belong in this space. This was where kings lived, and I was still just a singer from a minor pack. You should rest too, Thaddeus said quietly, appearing at my elbow. You look ready to collapse. I'm fine. You just broke a 3-year curse and kept a king from dying of shock. You're not fine, he gestured to a side door. There's an adjoining chamber, for the king's companion. The way he said companion made it clear he wasn't sure what to call me. Not queen, not concubine. Something undefined, and therefore dangerous. I should go back to my room. Seraphine. Solon's voice cut across the activity. The healers stepped back, giving him space. He was looking at me with those golden eyes. Stay. Not a command. A request. The king needs rest, one of the healers protested. Visitors should... She's not a visitor. Solon didn't look away from me. She's staying. In the adjoining chamber or in here, I don't care. But she's staying. The healer opened her mouth to argue, caught the look on Solon's face, and wisely closed it again. Thaddeus guided me to the adjoining chamber, smaller than Solon's but still grander than anywhere I'd ever stayed. There was a bed with silk sheets, a fireplace already burning, a bathing room that made me want to weep with longing. Get some sleep, Thaddeus said. I'll make sure no one disturbs you. And Seraphine? He paused at the door. Thank you. For saving him. For choosing him. Whatever comes next, thank you. He left before I could respond. I stood in the center of the room, suddenly overwhelmed. Less than 24 hours ago, I'd been a prisoner in a gilded cage, preparing to watch Solon be magically bound to someone else. Now the curse was broken, he was human, and I was standing in rooms adjacent to his like I belonged here, like I mattered. I should have been happy, triumphant, the heroine who'd broken the curse and won the king's heart. Instead, I felt terrified. Because this was when the real story started, the part the fairy tales never told you about. What happens after the curse breaks? After the kiss, the transformation, the happy ending? What happens when you have to actually live in the castle? When you have to face the court that thinks you're not good enough, the nobles who resent your presence, the political realities that make your love inconvenient? I'd chosen Solon in the dark, in private, when it was just the two of us and nothing else mattered. But now we had to choose each other in the light, in front of everyone, with consequences. I wasn't sure I was brave enough for that. I managed maybe 3 hours of sleep before a knock woke me. Not Thaddeus this time. A servant girl, young and nervous, carrying a dress. His Majesty requests your presence at dinner, she said, not meeting my eyes. The council is gathering. They need to discuss the situation. Translation: they needed to discuss me. What situation? I sat up, rubbing sleep from my eyes. Your position. In the court. She laid the dress on the bed, deep blue silk, embroidered with silver thread. Beautiful. Expensive. Completely inappropriate for someone like me. His Majesty insisted you have something proper to wear. I touched the silk gently. Did he choose this? The beta did, but the king approved it. She hesitated. Miss, can I ask, is it true? Did you really break the curse just by singing? Not by singing, by choosing him. But you're... She stopped, flushed. I'm sorry. That was rude. I'm nobody. I finished for her. I know. Everyone knows. You can say it. I was going to say you're brave. She met my eyes finally. The other singers, they were all so afraid of him. Of the wolf, of the cold, of failing. But you went back every night. Everyone in the castle knows that. We saw you walking down to the cavern, night after night, when you could have left. That's brave. Something warm bloomed in my chest. Thank you. The court might not see it that way, she warned. They're not happy about, well, everything. Lord Corvin is furious. Lady Isadora is threatening to return to her pack and tell everyone the Frost King rejected her. It's messy. Politics usually is. She smiled slightly. Good luck tonight. You'll need it. After she left, I stared at the dress for a long time. I could wear it. Play the part. Try to be what they wanted, a proper, noble lady, refined and political and appropriate. Or I could be what Solon had chosen, the broken songbird who sang in the dark, the girl who cared more about stories than status. I chose the latter. I wore the dress, it fit perfectly, which was almost annoying, but I left my hair loose instead of styled. I didn't wear jewels or cosmetics or any of the armor noble ladies used. I looked like exactly what I was, a minor pack girl playing dress-up in a castle. And when I walked into the dining hall, I held my head high. The council chamber was smaller than I'd expected. An oval table made of dark wood, chairs for maybe 15 people. Most were already seated: Lord Corvin, Lady Isadora, various other nobles and advisors whose names I didn't know. Thaddeus sat at Solon's right hand. The chair to Solon's left was empty. Every eye turned to me as I entered. Solon stood immediately. He looked better, still pale, still somewhat shaky, but human, whole. He was dressed in formal clothes, midnight blue and silver, the colors of his kingdom. A king again, not a dying wolf. Seraphine. He smiled, and some of the tension in the room eased. Come. Sit. He gestured to the empty chair. The position of honor. I heard someone, probably Lady Isadora, make a disgusted sound, but I walked forward and took the seat, because Solon had chosen it for me, and I'd promised to stay. Now that everyone is present, Solon said, sitting back down, we can begin. I'm sure you all have questions. Just one. Lord Corvin leaned forward. What exactly is Miss Seraphine's position in this court? Are we to understand that you intend to make her your queen? The room went silent. Solon looked at me, really looked at me, and in his eyes I saw the question he couldn't ask aloud. Is that what you want? I didn't know. 24 hours ago, I'd been property traded to ease a debt. Now I was sitting at the right hand of a king, being asked if I wanted to be a queen. It was absurd, impossible, terrifying. But when I looked at Solon, at the man who'd listened to my stories and learned my language and chosen me when he could have had anyone I knew, my answer. I don't need a title, I said quietly. I didn't choose Solon because I wanted to be queen. I chose him because he was alone and in pain, and I understood what that felt like. Everything else is secondary. How refreshingly naive. Lady Isadora's smile was sharp, but the kingdom requires more than sentiment. It requires strategy, alliances, heirs. I'm aware of what kingdoms require. I kept my voice steady despite the way my heart was hammering. I'm also aware that I'm not what anyone would choose for a queen. I can't shift. I'm barren. I have no pack, no power, no political value. Then you understand why this is impossible, Lord Corvin said, almost gently. I understand why it's difficult. I looked around the table, meeting each pair of eyes. But I also understand that your king was dying, that 23 other singers failed where I succeeded, that the curse broke not because of powerful magic or noble bloodlines or binding rituals, but because someone chose him freely. If that's not valuable, then I don't understand value. Silence. Then Thaddeus spoke. She has a point. She has sentiment. Lord Corvin waved a hand. Which is touching, but insufficient for... I'm not asking for your approval. Solon's voice cut through the debate like a blade. I'm informing you of my decision. Seraphine stays, in whatever capacity she chooses. If she wants to be queen, she'll be queen. If she wants to be a singer who visits me in the evenings, then that's what she'll be. But she stays. And if the other kingdoms see this as weakness? Lady Isadora challenged. If they decide a king who chooses based on emotion rather than strategy is vulnerable, then they'll learn exactly how strong a king becomes when he has something real to fight for. Solon's eyes blazed. I've been weak for 3 years, dying, isolated, unable to protect anything. You think I'm going to be weaker now that I'm alive? Now that I have a reason to keep fighting? No one answered. The curse taught me something, Solon continued, his voice softer now. It taught me that all the power and strategy and political alliances in the world mean nothing if you're alone. I ruled well before the curse. I made smart choices, formed strong alliances, led my kingdom effectively, and I was still miserable, still isolated, still slowly freezing to death from the inside. He reached over and took my hand, in front of everyone. Seraphine gave me something I'd never had. Someone who chose me not for what I could give her, but for who I was, even when I was a monster, even when I couldn't speak, even when choosing me gained her nothing. He squeezed my fingers. So yes, I'm choosing her back, freely, completely. And if that makes me weak in your eyes, then I'll rule as a weak king, but I'll rule as a living one. The silence that followed was thick with tension. Then, slowly, Thaddeus stood. I support the king's decision. Lord Corvin sighed. This is going to be a political nightmare. Most worthwhile things are, Solon replied. I'll return to my pack. Lady Isadora stood abruptly. And I'll make sure everyone knows how the Frost King repaid my generous offer. Make sure they also know the curse is broken, Solon said calmly, and that the Frostlands are whole again. That truth should balance whatever poison you decide to spread. She left without another word, her fury radiating like heat. Well, Lord Corvin stood as well. I suppose we have work to do. Announcements to make. Treaties to renegotiate. A kingdom to stabilize. He looked at me, and anew, whatever you are, to integrate into court life. This will be interesting. He didn't sound happy about it, but he wasn't fighting anymore either. I'd take it. As the council filed out, leaving just me, Solon, and Thaddeus, I finally let myself breathe. That went well, Thaddeus said dryly. That was a disaster, I corrected. That was politics. Solon pulled me up from my chair, into his arms, and we survived. Everything else is just details. Details like what I'm actually going to do here. I'm not qualified to be queen. You're qualified to be whatever you want to be. He pressed his forehead to mine. You want to just sing? Fine. You want to help me rule? Fine. You want to hide in the library and write stories? Also fine. The point is, you stay. Everything else we figure out together. Together, I repeated, testing the word. It felt foreign, fragile, but also right. Go rest, Thaddeus said. Both of you. Tomorrow we deal with the kingdom. Tonight, you're allowed to just be 2 people who survived something impossible. He was right. We'd broken a curse, survived political scrutiny, chosen each other in front of everyone who said it was impossible. Tonight, we'd earned the right to just be. So I let Solon lead me back to his chambers, let him hold me while the fire burned low, let myself believe just for tonight that fairy tales could be real. Tomorrow would bring complications. Politics, the hard work of living in the light. But tonight, I had this. The warmth of his arms, the sound of his breathing, the certainty that we'd chosen each other. And for a girl who'd spent her whole life being unchosen, that was more than enough. Chapter 6. The Weight of Crowns. I woke to sunlight. Real, warm, golden sunlight streaming through windows I hadn't bothered to close. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was. The bed was too soft, the room too warm, the light too bright. Then I felt the weight of an arm around my waist and remembered everything. Solon, the curse, the choice. I was in the king's chambers, in his bed. Not because he'd demanded it or because court protocol required it, but because neither of us had wanted to be alone. We'd fallen asleep talking about nothing important, about everything important. About the stories I'd read in the library, about the festivals he wanted to bring back, about what it felt like to be trapped and then suddenly free. We'd talked until our voices gave out, until exhaustion finally claimed us. And now, it was morning, and I was waking up next to a king. The absurdity of it made me want to laugh. Or cry. Or both. "You're thinking too loud." Solon's voice was rough with sleep, his arm tightened around me. "I can hear your thoughts from here." I wasn't aware thoughts made sound. "Yours do. They sound like panic." He shifted, propping himself up on one elbow to look at me. His white blonde hair was a mess, his golden eyes still heavy with sleep. He looked more human like this. Less like a king, more like just a man. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. Everything. I don't know." I stared at the ceiling. Yesterday I broke a curse. Today I have to figure out how to live in a castle with people who hate me. The scale feels wrong. They don't hate you. Lady Isadora definitely hates me. Lady Isadora hates that I chose you instead of her. That's different. He traced lazy patterns on my arm. "She'll get over it. Or she won't. Either way, it's not your problem. Everything is my problem now. That's what happens when you're sitting at the king's left hand." I turned to face him. "I don't know how to do this, Solon. I don't know how to be what they need me to be." "Then don't be what they need. Be what you are. A broken girl from a nothing pack? I don't think that's going to inspire confidence in the court." It inspired confidence in me. His hand moved to cup my face. "And I'm the king. My opinion counts for something. Your opinion counts for everything. That's the problem. You could declare me queen tomorrow, and they'd have to accept it. But that doesn't mean they'd respect it. Or me." I closed my eyes. "I don't want to be a weakness for you. Something enemies can exploit. You're not a weakness. You're—" He stopped, searching for words. "You know what the curse taught me? That strength without connection is just slow death. I was strong before. I had power, armies, political alliances, and I was dying anyway. Because I was alone. You're not alone anymore." "Exactly. Which makes me stronger, not weaker." He pressed his forehead to mine. "Stop trying to be what you think they want. Just be you. The girl who sang to a dying wolf and didn't run when he tried to scare her away. I was scared. But you came back anyway. That's all I'm asking now. Whatever comes, politics, threats, people who think you don't belong, just keep coming back. We'll figure out the rest together." I wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that love and choice and coming back were enough. But I'd lived in the real world long enough to know that sometimes they weren't. Thaddeus arrived with breakfast and news, neither of which were particularly good. "Lady Isadora left at dawn," he reported, setting down a tray laden with food. "She's returning to the Silverpine Pack. But before she left, she sent messages to the other 4 kingdoms, informing them that the Frost King has recovered and that his romantic situation is highly unconventional." "Meaning?" Solon asked, though his tone suggested he already knew. "Meaning 3 of the 4 kingdoms have requested formal audiences within the week. They want to see for themselves that you're whole, and they want to assess." Thaddeus glanced at me. "The stability of your rule. They want to see if I'm vulnerable," Solon translated. "If my choice of mate makes me weak." "Essentially, yes. Let them come." Solon's voice was hard. "I'll show them exactly how weak I am." "There's more." Thaddeus looked uncomfortable. "The Thornvale Pack sent a representative. Your father, Seraphine. He arrived this morning requesting an audience." My stomach dropped. "My father is here?" "Waiting in the guest quarters. He says he wants to discuss your situation." I could imagine what that meant. My father had sold me to ease a debt. Now that debt was paid, and I'd somehow become valuable, he probably wanted to renegotiate, to claim credit for my success, to position Thornvale as the pack that had provided the Frost King's chosen mate. Politics. Always politics. "I'll see him," I said quietly. "You don't have to." Solon's hand found mine under the table. "You don't owe him anything." "I know. But I want to." I needed to, actually. Needed to face the man who'd traded me away and show him that I'd survived. That I'd become something more than the broken daughter he'd been ashamed of. Alone. I need to do this alone. Solon didn't like it. I could see that in the tightness around his eyes. But he nodded. Thaddeus will escort you, and if you need me, I know where to find you." My father looked older than I remembered. Only a few weeks had passed since I'd left Thornvale, but he seemed diminished somehow, smaller. Less like the powerful alpha who'd ruled my life, and more like just a tired man carrying too much weight. He stood when I entered the receiving room, and for a moment, we just stared at each other. "Seraphine." His voice was rough. "You look, well, I am well. I heard about the curse, about what you did." He paused. "The entire kingdom is talking about it. The broken songbird who saved the Frost King. I didn't save him. I just chose to stay." "That's what everyone is saying." He gestured to a chair. "May I sit? This is harder than I thought it would be." I nodded, taking the seat across from him. Thaddeus remained by the door far enough to give us privacy, close enough to intervene if needed. My father sat heavily. "I came to apologize. Of all the things I'd expected, that wasn't one of them. Apologize? For sending you here. For trading you like property. For," he swallowed hard, "for making you feel like you were disposable. Like your only value was as a transaction. I was disposable. To the pack. To you. You were never disposable to me." His eyes, the same gray as mine, were wet. "You were my daughter. My first daughter. And I failed you every day of your life." "Yes," I said simply. "You did." He flinched like I'd struck him. "Your mother would be ashamed of me." "My mother is dead. You don't get to use her memory as absolution." "I know." He leaned forward, hands clasped. "I'm not here for absolution, Seraphine. I'm here because you deserve to know the truth about why I sent you. You sent me to clear the blood tithe debt. You told me that was part of it, but not all of it." He took a shaking breath. "When the beta came, when he explained what the Frost King needed, a singer with an exceptional voice, someone who understood being broken, I knew immediately he was describing you. And I knew that if I didn't send you, he'd take Dahlia instead. Dahlia is pregnant. They would have waited, taken her after the birth. The tithe demanded an alpha's bloodline. One of you was going." His voice cracked. "I chose you because I thought you were stronger, because you'd survived being broken your whole life. Because I thought you could survive this too." I stared at him. "You sent me because you thought I was strong? I sent you because I was a coward who couldn't bear to lose both daughters." He wiped his eyes roughly. "I told myself it was for the pack, that sacrificing one daughter to protect the other was alpha logic. But the truth is, I just couldn't face losing Dahlia. She was easier to love, easier to be proud of. She reminded me of your mother, and I reminded you of your failure." "No." He looked at me directly. "You reminded me of myself, of all the ways I fell short of what an alpha should be. Every time I looked at you, I saw my own weakness reflected back. So I pushed you away, made you small, told myself you didn't matter as much." He shook his head. "I was wrong. About everything. And I'm sorry." The apology hung in the air between us. Part of me wanted to accept it, to forgive him and move forward and pretend the past didn't matter. But a larger part, the part that had spent 24 years being not enough, couldn't. "I appreciate the apology," I said carefully. "But it doesn't change what happened. It doesn't erase all the times you looked at me with disgust. All the times you made it clear I was a disappointment. An apology is just words." "I know. That's why I brought this." He reached into his coat and pulled out a small leather journal. Old, worn, with my mother's initials embossed on the cover. "Your mother kept a journal. I never let you have it because I was selfish. Because I wanted to keep her for myself." He held it out. "But it's yours. It was always supposed to be yours." My hands shook as I took it. I could smell her still faint, but there, lavender and pine smoke. "She wrote about you," my father said quietly. "About how much she loved watching you read. About your voice, even when you were tiny. About how she knew you'd be special, even if you never shifted. She saw something in you that I was too blind to see." He stood. "I won't ask for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that your mother loved you exactly as you were, and that I'm proud of you, for surviving, for choosing to live even when we made it so hard. He walked to the door, paused. The pack formally recognizes your bond with the Frost King. Thornvale will support your position at court for what little that's worth from a minor pack. And Seraphine? He looked back. You were never broken. We just didn't know how to see your strength. Then he left, and I was alone with my mother's journal and a lifetime of complicated feelings I didn't know what to do with. Thaddeus approached carefully. Are you all right? I don't know. I clutched the journal to my chest. He apologized. After 24 years, he finally apologized. Is that enough? No, but it's something. I stood, steadying myself. Where's Solon? The council room, preparing for the kingdom audiences. He'll want to know how this went. Then let's go tell him. I found Solon surrounded by maps and reports, Lord Corvin and several other advisors arguing about alliance positions and defensive strategies. He looked up the moment I entered, and the relief on his face was palpable. How did it go? Strange, he apologized. I showed him the journal, and he gave me this, my mother's journal. Solon stood immediately, crossing to me. Do you want to talk about it? Later. Right now, you have kingdoms to impress. I looked at the maps. What's the situation? The situation, Lord Corvin said dryly, is that 3 kingdoms smell blood in the water. They're coming to test our strength, to see if the king's unconventional choice has made us vulnerable. So show them it hasn't. I moved to the table, studying the maps. What are their weaknesses? Everyone stared at me. What? I read. A lot, including military histories and political treatises. I might not be able to shift, but I can recognize strategic vulnerabilities. I pointed to the map of the Ironwood Kingdom. King Aldous has been dealing with internal disputes for 2 years. His eastern territories are practically independent. He can't afford to show aggression because he needs to project stability. Lord Corvin's eyebrows rose. That's accurate. The Silverpine Pack will be angry because of Lady Isadora, I continued. But they're the smallest of the 5 kingdoms. Their anger is noise, not threat. The real danger is the Shadowfen Kingdom. They've been expanding aggressively for 5 years. If they think you're weak, they'll test borders. Which is why we need to show strength, Solon said, watching me with something like pride. Unified strength. Then let me help. I looked around the table. I know I'm not what anyone expected. I know I'm not qualified in traditional ways, but I understand stories, how to tell them, how to control them. Right now the story is Frost King makes emotional decision, possibly compromised. We need to change that story. To what? Lord Corvin asked, genuinely curious now. To Frost King breaks impossible curse, emerges stronger, proves that true loyalty matters more than political convenience. I met his eyes. Make me part of the strength narrative, not the weakness one. Show them that choosing someone for genuine loyalty creates a more stable foundation than choosing someone for their alliance network. Silence around the table. Then Thaddeus laughed. She's not wrong. She's definitely not wrong, Solon agreed. Which is exactly why I chose her. It's risky, Lord Corvin warned. If it backfires, then it backfires, and we deal with it. Solon pulled me close to his side. But I'm tired of pretending that what we have is a weakness. It's not. It's the reason I'm alive. And if other kingdoms can't understand that, then we'll teach them, boldly said. Lord Corvin studied us both. Fine. We present a united front. King and, what do we call you? Exactly. Seraphine, I said simply. Just Seraphine. Let them figure out the rest. The first kingdom arrived 2 days later. King Aldous of Ironwood came with a small retinue, purposefully small, to show he wasn't threatened. He was older than Solon, with iron-gray hair and sharp green eyes that missed nothing. The formal audience was held in the Great Hall, with the full court present. I stood at Solon's left hand, dressed in the blue silk that had become my unofficial uniform. Simple, elegant, unmistakably there. King Solon. Aldous bowed. The minimum respect required. I'm pleased to see you recovered. The curse was troubling. Troubling for me more than anyone. Solon's voice was dry. But yes, I'm recovered. thanks to Seraphine. He gestured to me, and Aldous' gaze shifted, assessing, calculating. The singer from Thornvale. Your reputation precedes you. I'm sure it does. I kept my voice level, though I imagine the reputation varies depending on who's telling it. A flicker of amusement crossed his face. Indeed, Lady Isadora was quite vocal about your role in breaking the curse. I'm sure she was. She claimed you used manipulation, political maneuvering, that the king was influenced by proximity and desperation rather than genuine connection. And what do you think? I asked boldly. Probably too boldly, but Aldous smiled. I think Lady Isadora is angry she didn't break the curse herself, and I think he looked between us. I think whatever happened down in that frozen cavern, it was real. Genuine feeling can't be faked. I've been married for 30 years. I know the difference. Some of the tension in the room eased. So you're not here to test our strength? Solon asked. Oh, I'm absolutely here to test your strength, but not your emotional strength that's been proven. I'm here to test whether you're ready to rule again, whether the curse left any lasting damage. Aldous' expression turned serious. The Shadowfen Kingdom is making aggressive moves. They're pressuring border pacts, offering protection that's really just annexation. We need to know if the Frostlands will stand with us when they inevitably push too far. The Frostlands will stand. Solon's voice was steel. I'm alive. I'm whole, and I'm ready to defend what's mine. Good, because Shadowfen's king will be here tomorrow, and he won't be as diplomatic as I am. Aldous was right. King Malachar of Shadowfen arrived the next day with a full military escort, 50 armed wolves, all in aggressive formation, a show of power meant to intimidate. Solon met them in the courtyard rather than the Great Hall, another power play showing he wasn't afraid to face them on open ground. Malachar was younger than Solon, dark-haired and handsome in a cruel way. His eyes were black as pitch, and when he smiled, it didn't reach them. Solon. Back from the dead, I see. Not dead, just cold. Solon didn't offer the traditional greeting between alphas. What brings you to my kingdom, Malachar? Curiosity. I heard you'd recovered through unconventional means. His eyes slid to me, and I wanted to see the miracle worker for myself. She's not a miracle worker. She's Seraphine. Just Seraphine? Malachar circled us slowly, predatory. How modest. Though I suppose when you're betting a king, you don't need titles. The insult was deliberate, crude. Solon's hand moved to his sword, but I touched his arm, stopped him. I don't need titles, I said calmly, because unlike some people, my value doesn't come from what I'm called. It comes from what I choose to do. And what have you chosen to do? Besides seduce a desperate king? I chose to sit with him in the dark when everyone else abandoned him. I chose to learn his language when he couldn't speak. I chose to stay when I could have left. I stepped forward, into Malachar's space. What have you chosen, Your Majesty? What desperate, vulnerable people have you helped lately? Or do you only know how to prey on weakness? His eyes flashed. Careful. Little songbird. You're speaking to a king. So am I gestured to Solon. And he's twice the king you are, because he knows the difference between strength and cruelty. For a moment, I thought Malachar would strike me. His hand twitched toward his weapon. But Solon was there, between us, radiating lethal intent. Touch her and find out exactly how recovered I am. Malachar laughed sharp and humorless. Defensive. How sweet. But this proves my point. You're compromised, Solon. Emotionally invested in a nobody. It makes you predictable. Vulnerable. Try me and see how vulnerable I am. They stared at each other. Two alphas testing boundaries. Finally, Malachar stepped back. I'll be watching, he said. When you make mistakes, and you will, because love makes everyone weak, I'll be there to capitalize on them. He left with his escort, and I realized I was shaking. You were magnificent, Solon said quietly. I was terrified. Same thing, sometimes. He pulled me close. But he's right about one thing. He will be watching, waiting for us to fail. Then we don't fail. Just like that? Just like that. I looked up at him. We've broken curses. We can handle politics. He kissed my forehead. Together, together. That night, alone in our chambers, Solon found me reading my mother's journal. "What does it say?" he asked, settling beside me. "That she loved me, that she was proud of me, that she knew I was different but never thought I was broken." I wiped my eyes. She wrote that my voice was a gift, that even if I never shifted, I would still matter. I just had to find people who understood what kind of strength I had. She was right. She never got to see it. She died when Dahlia was born. But she knew. She knew you'd find your way. He took my hand. "I'm glad you did. I'm glad you found your way to me. Even with all the complications, the politics, the threats, the people who think I'm your weakness, especially with all that." He pulled me close. "Because none of it matters as much as this. Us. Choosing each other every day. Every day," I repeated. And in that moment, despite the kingdoms circling like wolves, despite the threats and the politics and the uncertainty of what came next, I believed it. We would choose each other every day. And that would be enough. Chapter 7. When Wolves Circle. 3 weeks after the curse broke, the first border outpost fell. The news came at dawn, delivered by a blood-covered scout who collapsed in the Great Hall. Thaddeus was there within seconds, as was Solon. I'd been in the library, my refuge, when court politics became too suffocating, but I heard the commotion and came running. "The Eastern Outpost," the scout gasped, coughing blood. "Shadowfen forces. They came in the night. 50 soldiers, maybe more. We held them off as long as we could, but—" He swayed, and Thaddeus caught him before he fell. "They're not raiding. They're occupying. They mean to stay." "How many survivors?" Solon's voice was deadly calm. "Maybe 10. They scattered into the forest. I ran for 2 days straight to get here." The scout's eyes found Solon. "Your Majesty, they're saying this is a test, that you're too weak to respond, that the Frost King lost his teeth along with his curse." Solon's expression could have frozen fire. "Get him to the healers, then summon the War Council. We meet in 10 minutes. The Great Hall exploded into activity. Nobles rushing to prepare, servants bringing maps and weapons, messengers running to alert the guard. I stood frozen, watching the organized chaos, feeling utterly useless. "Seraphine." Solon grabbed my arm as he passed. "War Council, you're coming. I'm not a warrior. You're my partner. You come." No room for argument in his tone. So I followed him to the war room, a circular chamber deep in the castle where military decisions were made. Lord Corvin was already there, along with Thaddeus and 3 other generals I recognized from court but had never spoken to. They all looked up when I entered. Several frowned. "The singer?" General Rothgar, a scarred older wolf, raised an eyebrow. "This is a military council, Your Majesty, and she's part of my council." Solon pulled out a chair for me. "Continue." Lord Corvin spread maps across the table. "The Eastern Outpost guards our border with Shadowfen. It's strategically important, controls the mountain pass that's the easiest route into our territory. If Malachar holds it, he can move troops in at will. So we take it back," Solon said flatly. "It's not that simple." Thaddeus traced the map. "The outpost is fortified, designed to be held by a small force against a larger one, which means a small Shadowfen force can now hold it against us. Then we bring a larger force, which is exactly what Malachar wants." Lord Corvin's voice was grim. "He's baiting you, wants you to commit troops to a siege while he moves on other borders. This isn't about one outpost. It's about testing whether you're thinking strategically or emotionally, meaning he thinks I'll be reckless because of the curse, because of Seraphine." All eyes turned to me. I kept my voice steady despite my racing heart. "He told us he'd be watching, waiting for love to make you weak. This is the test." "So what do we do?" General Rothgar asked. "Let him keep our outpost? Show weakness?" "We show strength," I said quietly. "Just not the way he expects." "And what would you know about military strategy, girl?" Rothgar's tone was dismissive. "I know about stories, about expectations and how to subvert them." I leaned over the map, studying the terrain. Malachar expects Solon to either react emotionally, throw everything at the outpost in a rage, or to hesitate because he's afraid of looking emotional. Either way, Malachar controls the narrative. So we do neither, Solon said, understanding dawning. We respond strategically, but quickly. Show we're neither reckless nor paralyzed. Exactly. I pointed to the map. The outpost controls the pass. But there are other ways through the mountains, harder, slower, but passable for small groups. We couldn't move an army through those routes, Thaddeus said. We don't need an army. We need a message. I looked at Solon. Send a small strike force through the difficult routes. Hit them where they don't expect it. Retake the outpost fast and surgically. Show Malachar that you're not just strong, you're smart. It's risky, Lord Corvin warned. If the strike force fails, then we've lost soldiers but not position. We can still bring in the army as backup. I met his eyes. But if it works, we've proven that Solon isn't compromised, that he can still think clearly under pressure. Silence around the table. Then Hrothgar laughed a sharp, surprised bark. It might actually work. It will work, Solon said. Thaddeus, select 20 of our best, wolves who can navigate the mountain routes. We move tonight. I'm coming with you. The words were out of my mouth before I could stop them. Every head snapped toward me. Absolutely not, Solon said immediately. You need me there. I need you safe. You need the story to be right. I stood, planting my hands on the table. If you go without me, Malachar will say you left me behind because you're finally thinking clearly, that you've realized I'm a liability. But if I come, if I'm part of the strike force, it proves that your faith in me is absolute, that you're not compromised, you're committed. She has a point, Thaddeus said quietly. She has a death wish, Solon countered. She can't fight, she can't shift, she'd be a target. I'd be a symbol. I faced him directly. Look, I'm not stupid. I know I can't fight. But symbols matter in war as much as swords, maybe more. You bring me? You prove that love doesn't make you weak, it makes you bold. Or it gets you killed. His voice was raw. Seraphine, I just got you. I'm not losing you to prove a political point. And I'm not letting you face this alone just because I'm afraid. I touched his arm. We chose this together. Whatever comes, politics, threats, war, we face it together. You said that. Did you mean it? He stared at me for a long moment, jaw working. Finally, you stay behind me at all times. You don't engage. If things go wrong, Thaddeus gets you out. Non-negotiable. Agreed. This is insane, Hrothgar muttered, but he was smiling slightly. The king and his songbird, going to war together. If nothing else, it'll make a good story. Let's make sure it's a victory story, Lord Corvin said dryly. Prepare the strike force. We leave at nightfall. The hours before departure were a blur of preparation. Thaddeus found me armor light leather, designed for mobility rather than heavy combat. It won't stop a direct hit, he warned, but it might deflect a glancing blow. Better than nothing. Seraphine. He caught my arm. You don't have to do this. No one would think less of you. Yes, they would. They'd think I was weak, that I couldn't handle the reality of what Solon faces. I strapped on the armor, testing the fit. I've spent my whole life being told I'm not enough. Not strong enough, not wolf enough, not important enough. I'm done accepting that. If I'm going to be the Frost King's partner, I'm going to be a real partner. Even if it kills you? Even then. I met his eyes. Because at least I'll die mattering. That's more than I had before. He sighed. You're either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. Solon found me in the armory, checking my equipment for the third time. He didn't say anything at first, just watched me fumble with the straps. Here. He moved behind me, his hands deft and sure as he adjusted the fit. Tighter here. Looser there. You need to be able to move. I don't know what I'm doing, I admitted quietly. I know, which is why you're staying with me. He turned me to face him. I meant what I said. You stay behind me. You don't take risks. If I tell you to run, you run. If you tell me to run, we both run. Seraphine. No. I grabbed his shirt. You don't get to be noble and sacrificial. We're partners. That means neither of us gets left behind. Clear? He pressed his forehead to mine. You're going to give me gray hairs. You already have white blonde hair. No one will notice." He laughed despite himself, then kissed me hard and desperate, and full of everything we might not get to say if this went wrong. "Don't die," he whispered against my lips. "You either." We left at nightfall with 20 of Solan's best warriors, all in wolf form except for Solan and me. He couldn't maintain his wolf form for extended periods, yet a lingering effect of the curse, and I obviously couldn't shift at all. So we traveled as humans while the others ranged ahead, scouting. The mountain paths were brutal, narrow, icy, treacherous in the dark. More than once I nearly fell, only to be caught by Solan or Thaddeus. But we pressed on, moving as quickly as we dared. "How much farther?" I asked, after what felt like hours. 3 more miles to the outpost," Thaddeus said. He'd shifted back to human to give us an update. "The pack is scouting ahead. They've spotted Shadowfen sentries. Looks like Malachar left about 20 soldiers to hold the position." 20 against 22, Solan mused. "Fair odds. Except they're fortified and we're attacking uphill," Thaddeus countered. "Still, we have surprise. They won't expect an attack from this direction." We continued in silence. The only sounds our breathing and the crunch of snow under our boots. The moon was high and bright, illuminating the path, but also making us more visible. A risk we had to take. Finally, we reached the ridge overlooking the outpost. It was a sturdy structure, stone walls, wooden watchtowers, a heavy gate, defensible. Shadowfen soldiers patrolled the walls, confident in their position. Solan gathered his warriors, speaking in low tones. "Thaddeus leads the main assault on the gate. Draw their attention. Make them think that's the real attack. Meanwhile, I take 5 soldiers and Seraphine through the east side. There's a drainage culvert that should be unguarded." We get inside, open the gate from within. "Why bring her inside?" Hrothgar challenged. "She'll slow you down. Because if we're spotted, they'll see the king protecting his mate. It'll make them hesitate, make them think emotionally instead of tactically. That hesitation is our advantage." Solan looked at me. "Also, I'm not leaving her outside where I can't protect her." No one argued further. We split into groups. Thaddeus's force moved to position at the main gate, while Solan, me, and 5 others crept along the ridge toward the east wall. The drainage culvert was exactly where Solan remembered a narrow tunnel, partially blocked with ice, just wide enough for a person to crawl through. One of the soldiers went first, then me, then Solan. It was tight, dark. My heart hammered so loud I was sure someone would hear it. But we made it through, emerging inside the outpost walls in a shadowed corner behind the barracks. 3 guards at the gate," one soldier whispered. 2 more on the walls. The rest must be inside. "We take the gate guards first," Solan said. "Silent, fast. Then open the gate for Thaddeus." It happened so quickly, I barely processed it. The soldiers moved like shadows, taking down the gate guards before they could raise an alarm. Solan hauled the heavy bar up, and the gate swung open. Thaddeus's force poured in, and suddenly the outpost was chaos. Shadowfen soldiers emerged from the barracks, weapons drawn. The fighting was brutal, wolves against wolves, all teeth and claws and desperate violence. I pressed against the wall, staying out of the way like I'd promised. But then I saw him, a Shadowfen soldier, shifting direction, heading straight for me. He'd recognized me, saw the opportunity. "The songbird," he snarled. "Malachar said to take you alive if possible, that you'd be worth more as a hostage." He didn't finish the sentence. Solan materialized between us, moving faster than should have been possible. There was a flash of silver, a spray of blood, and the soldier went down. "Behind me," Solan growled, shifting into his wolf form, massive and white and terrifying. "Stay behind me." More Shadowfen soldiers converged, realizing that the king was here, exposed, protecting his mate. Exactly what Malachar had predicted, that love would make Solan vulnerable. But they'd miscalculated one thing. Solan wasn't just protecting me, he was using me as bait. The Shadowfen soldiers focused on him, trying to get past him to reach me, which meant they weren't watching for Thaddeus's forces closing in from behind. Weren't prepared for Hrothgar's group dropping from the walls. Within minutes, the Shadowfen soldiers were surrounded, outnumbered. "Surrender," Thaddeus called out, Or die. Your choice. They chose surrender. We held the outpost until morning, when Lord Corvin arrived with reinforcements. By then, the captured Shadowfen soldiers had been secured, the wounded treated, the position fortified. Solon stood on the wall as the sun rose, surveying the kingdom spread out below. I joined him, exhausted and blood-stained, but alive. "We did it," I said. "We did." He pulled me close, "though I think I lost 10 years off my life when that soldier went for you. You knew they would. That's why you brought me to draw them out. Make them emotional." "Doesn't mean I liked it." He kissed my temple. "You were right, though. About the story. About proving we're not compromised. This sends a message to every kingdom. The Frost King is back, and he's stronger than ever. Because he has someone worth protecting? Because he has someone worth fighting alongside." He turned me to face him. "That soldier," said Malachar, "wanted you alive. As a hostage. That means he sees you as valuable as a genuine pressure point, not just a weakness. Is there a difference? Yes. A weakness can be exploited by threatening it, but a pressure point can also be a strength, something that motivates you to fight harder, think clearer, be better." His golden eyes held mine. "You're my strength, Seraphine, not my weakness." And now, Malachar knows it. Below us, the soldiers were already spreading the story. The king and his songbird, fighting together to retake the outpost. Bold, united, uncompromised. Exactly the story we needed. We returned to the castle as heroes. The court lined up to greet us. And for the first time since I'd arrived, I saw something other than disdain or skepticism in their eyes. I saw respect. "Well done," Lord Corvin said simply. "Both of you." "Thank you for trusting my plan," I replied. "I trusted the king's judgment." He paused. "But you're proving that trust wasn't misplaced. Perhaps there's value in perspectives that don't come from traditional power structures." It was the closest thing to a compliment I'd ever received from him. That night, exhausted and aching, I collapsed into bed beside Solon. He wrapped around me immediately, protective even in sleep. "Thank you," he murmured, half asleep, "for being brave, for standing with me. Thank you for letting me. Always." His grip tightened. "Whatever comes next, more wars, more politics, more kingdoms testing us, we face it together." "Together," I agreed. But as I drifted off, I couldn't shake a feeling of unease. We'd won this battle, proven ourselves. But Malachar was still out there, watching, waiting, and something told me the real test was still coming. Chapter 8. The Heart's True Test. The letter arrived 3 days after we retook the outpost. It was delivered by a Shadowfen messenger under flag of truce, a young wolf, barely more than a boy, who looked terrified to be standing in the Frost King's court. Thaddeus accepted the sealed letter and dismissed the messenger with surprising gentleness before bringing it to Solon. We were in the strategy room, reviewing supply routes with Lord Corvin, when Thaddeus entered. "From Malachar," he said simply, placing the letter on the table. The black wax seal bore the Shadowfen crest, a wolf's head wreathed in thorns. Solon broke it open, his expression unreadable as he scanned the contents. Then his face went very still. "What is it?" I asked. He didn't answer immediately. "Just read the letter again, slowly, as if hoping the words would change." "Solon?" Thaddeus prompted. "He's challenged me to single combat." Solon's voice was flat. "In 3 weeks, at the border between our kingdoms, winner takes the disputed territories." "What?" I grabbed the letter, reading it myself. "King Solon of the Frostlands, your recent actions have shown you are not, as I suspected, weakened by sentiment. This pleases me. A weak opponent makes for a boring game. However, questions remain about your fitness to rule. 3 years cursed, 6 months trapped as a beast, these leave marks, physical and otherwise. Your kingdom deserves to know their king is truly whole. Therefore, I challenge you to single combat. 1 month from the date of this letter, at the standing stones that mark our border, you and I, wolf to wolf, witnessed by both kingdoms. The victor claims the disputed border territories. The loser concedes not just land but credibility. If you refuse, I will take your refusal as admission that you are indeed compromised, that the curse left you broken, and I will press my claim to your territories through military force instead. I await your response. Malachar, King of Shadowfen. My hands were shaking. This is a trap. Of course it's a trap, Lord Corvin said, but it's a clever one. If Solon refuses, Malachar can claim he's hiding weakness, but if he accepts, I accept, Solon said quietly. No. The word burst from me before I could stop it. You can't. You've barely recovered from 3 years of curse. You haven't been able to hold your wolf form for more than an hour at a time. You're not ready for this. I don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Not this time. He looked at me, and there was something broken in his eyes. If I refuse, Malachar brings his full army. We'll be at war, real war, not skirmishes over outposts. Thousands will die. And every day I delay, every battle we fight instead of facing this challenge, will be seen as proof that I'm afraid. That the curse did break me. But you're not broken. I don't know that. His voice was raw. I haven't tried to fight. Not really. Not since before the curse. What if I've lost it? What if 3 years of being frozen, of being trapped, of being weak, what if that's permanent? Silence fell over the room. Then we train, Thaddeus said finally. We have 3 weeks. We use them. Against Malachar? Lord Corvin shook his head. He's one of the most formidable fighters in all 5 kingdoms. He's been training, fighting, leading battles while Solon was dying in a cave. 3 weeks won't be enough. Then we make it enough. I stood, planting my hands on the table. We train. We strategize. We find his weaknesses and exploit them. We've done it before. We can do it again. This isn't the same as retaking an outpost, Corvin warned. This is life or death. If Solon loses, I lose more than territories, Solon finished. I lose credibility. The kingdom loses stability. And Malachar gains the leverage to push for more and more until there's nothing left of the Frostlands but a memory. So you win. I moved to his side. Simple. Nothing about this is simple. But he took my hand, squeezed it. But you're right. We train. We prepare. And when the time comes, I face him. The next 3 weeks were brutal. Every morning before dawn, Solon trained with his best warriors, sparring in both human and wolf form, pushing his body past its limits, trying to rebuild the strength and speed that 3 years of curse had stolen. I watched from the sidelines, my heart in my throat every time he took a hit, every time his wolf form flickered and threatened to give out. He was getting stronger, that was undeniable. But was it enough? He's favoring his left side, Thaddeus said quietly, standing beside me during one particularly brutal session. The curse damaged something there, maybe permanently. Can Malachar exploit that? If he notices? Absolutely. Thaddeus frowned. We need to train Solon to compensate, make the weakness less obvious, or make it look like a trap, I said slowly. What if Solon deliberately exaggerates the weakness, makes Malachar think he's more damaged than he is? Then, when Malachar commits to exploiting it, Solon counters with full strength. Thaddeus's eyes lit up. That could work. That could actually work. We spent the next week implementing the strategy, teaching Solon to lean into his weakness, to make it seem more pronounced than it was, to lure Malachar into overconfidence. But every night, when the training was done and we were alone in our chambers, I saw the toll it was taking. I can feel it, Solon said one night, lying in bed with his head in my lap while I ran my fingers through his hair. The curse, it's gone, but it left scars. Places where my body doesn't quite work right anymore. Scars make you experienced, not weak. Tell that to Malachar. He closed his eyes. What if I lose, Seraphine? What if I'm not strong enough? Then we figure out what comes next, together. There might not be a next for me. If he kills me. He won't. You can't know that. I know you. I made him look at me. I know you survived 3 years of a curse that should have killed you in months. I know you learned to communicate when you couldn't speak. I know you chose hope when you had every reason to give up. That's not the history of someone who breaks easily. I'm scared, he admitted quietly. Not of dying, of failing, of proving that everyone who doubted us was right, that I'm compromised, that choosing you made me weak. Choosing me didn't make you weak. I cupped his face. It made you someone worth fighting for. That's different. He pulled me down into a kiss, desperate and clinging and full of fear. Promise me something. Anything. If I lose, if something happens to me, promise you'll leave, go somewhere safe. Don't stay here where Malachar can use you. I'm not promising that. Seraphine. No. I pulled back. You don't get to make me promise to abandon you. We're partners. That means I stay. Win or lose, live or die, I stay. That's not rational. I don't care. Tears burned in my eyes. I spent my whole life being rational, being small and quiet and accepting whatever scraps people threw me, and it brought me nothing but loneliness. So now I'm choosing to be irrational. I'm choosing to stay with you no matter what, and you can't stop me. He stared at me for a long moment. Then, impossibly, he smiled. You're insane. You chose me. What does that say about you? That I have excellent taste in insane women. He pulled me close again. Fine, you stay. But if things go wrong, if I'm dying, I need you to run. Get out before Malachar can take you. Promise me that at least. If you're dying, I'll be too busy dragging you to safety to run. Seraphine. That's the best you're getting. I kissed him gently. Now stop planning your death and get some sleep. You have training in 4 hours. The day of the challenge dawned cold and clear. The standing stones were ancient, massive pillars of granite arranged in a circle, marking the border between Frostlands and Shadowfen territory. Neutral ground, sacred ground, where the outcome of single combat was binding. Both kingdoms had sent witnesses. The Frostlands contingent Thaddeus, Lord Corvin. Most of the court stood on one side of the circle. Shadowfen's forces, easily twice as many, stood opposite. And between them, an open space where 2 kings would fight to the death, or near it. The rules allowed for surrender, but everyone knew neither king would surrender. This would end with blood. I stood with Thaddeus, dressed in the blue silk that had become my symbol, trying to look confident despite the terror churning in my gut. He's ready, Thaddeus said quietly, though I wasn't sure if he was reassuring me or himself. Is anyone ever ready for something like this? The best warriors are never ready. They just go anyway. Solon emerged from the Frostlands camp, dressed simply in leather armor, his white blonde hair pulled back. He looked strong, whole, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the way he favored his left side just slightly. Malachar came from the opposite direction, all dark confidence and predatory grace. He looked like violence personified, scarred and brutal and entirely unafraid. They met in the center of the circle. An arbiter, a neutral elder from the Ironwood Kingdom, stepped forward to recite the rules. Single combat to determine territorial rights, wolf form only. Fight continues until one party yields, dies, or is unable to continue. The outcome is binding and witnessed by both kingdoms. Do you both accept these terms? I accept, Solon said. I accept, Malachar echoed. Then, to Solon, any last words to your songbird before I tear your throat out? Yes. Solon turned to look at me across the distance. I love you. Whatever happens, that's real. That's truth. My throat closed. I couldn't speak, could only nod. How touching, Malachar sneered. Love won't save you. No, Solon agreed, turning back. But it'll give me a reason to win. The arbiter raised his hand. Begin. Both kings shifted. Solon's transformation was fluid but not effortless. I could see the slight hitch, the moment where his body resisted. But then his wolf stood there, massive and white and beautiful. Malachar's wolf was black as midnight and even larger. When he smiled, his teeth looked like knives. They circled each other slowly, testing, assessing. Then Malachar lunged. The fight was brutal from the first moment. Malachar was faster than Solon, which surprised me. He moved like liquid shadow, striking and retreating before Solon could counter. And every strike was calculated, precise, aimed at weak points. Solon held his ground, using his size to absorb hits that would have felled a smaller wolf. But I could see him struggling, could see the way his left side wasn't quite keeping up. Malachar noticed too. He focused his attacks there, hammering at Solon's weak side, driving him back. Blood matted Solon's white fur. He was losing. "No," I whispered. "No, no, no." "Wait." Thaddeus gripped my arm. "Watch." Solon stumbled, his left side giving out dramatically. He went down, exposed, vulnerable. Malachar lunged for the kill, and Solon's weakness vanished. He rolled, faster than should have been possible, and his jaws clamped onto Malachar's throat, not hard enough to kill, but hard enough to make his point. He'd baited him, made the weakness seem worse than it was, and Malachar had fallen for it. But Malachar was no fool. He twisted violently, breaking Solon's grip, blood spraying. They separated, both breathing hard, both bleeding. "Clever," Malachar's voice, speaking even in wolf form, a rare skill. "But tricks won't save you." They clashed again, and this time there were no tactics, no clever traps, just pure, brutal violence. I couldn't watch, couldn't not watch. Every hit Solon took felt like it was tearing pieces from my own body. Every time he stumbled, I thought, this is it. This is where he falls. But he didn't fall. He kept fighting, kept getting back up, kept pressing forward even when blood poured from a dozen wounds, even when his movements slowed, even when any rational wolf would have yielded. Because he had something to fight for. He had me. The fight lasted an eternity. Or maybe only minutes' time felt meaningless, stretched and compressed by terror. Finally, both wolves separated, panting, bleeding, barely standing. "Yield," Malachar growled. "You've proven your courage. No one can say you're weak, but you can't win. Your body won't hold." "Neither will yours," Solon countered. It was true. Malachar was bleeding almost as badly, his movements just as labored. "Then we die together like fools." Malachar laughed a terrible sound. "All for pride and politics." "Not pride." Solon looked toward me. "Love. That's what you'll never understand, Malachar. Why it makes us stronger instead of weaker. Love is a lie you tell yourself to justify weakness. Love is the only thing that makes strength matter." Solon lunged one final time. Not at Malachar's throat or body, at his legs. A wrestler's move, ungraceful but effective. Both wolves went down in a tangle of limbs and teeth and blood. They rolled across the ground, neither gaining advantage, both too exhausted for finesse, just desperate, brutal survival. Finally, they separated and lay there, both too exhausted to rise. The arbiter approached cautiously. "Neither combatant can continue. By the rules of single combat, this is a draw." "No." Malachar forced himself to his feet, swaying, bleeding, but standing. "No draw. I can still—" He collapsed mid-sentence. The arbiter looked at Solon, who was also trying to stand. He made it to 3 legs, his left side finally giving out completely. "The Frost King stands," the arbiter announced. "Victory to the Frostlands." A roar went up from our side. Thaddeus was running forward, along with the healers, but I was faster. I reached Solon first, dropping to my knees beside his wolf form. His eyes found mine barely conscious, but aware. "You did it," I sobbed. "You won." He shifted back to human, using the last of his strength. "Told you, love makes you stronger." Then he passed out in my arms. The healers worked on him for hours. I refused to leave his side, even when they tried to make me. I sat there, covered in his blood, holding his hand while they stitched wounds and treated injuries. "He'll live," the head healer finally announced, "but he'll need weeks to fully recover. The damage was extensive." "But he'll live," I repeated, needing to hear it again. "He'll live." Solon woke 3 hours later, groggy and in pain but alive. His first word was my name. "I'm here." I leaned over him. "You won. The territories are ours. You proved everything they said you couldn't. Don't care about territories." His voice was rough. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "You're the one who nearly died. But you're okay." He pulled me down, kissed me despite the healers tutting. "That's all that matters. You're impossible. You love me anyway." "Unfortunately, yes." He smiled, then winced. Everything hurts. Good. Maybe you'll think twice before accepting death matches from aggressive kings. Probably not. He squeezed my hand. But I'll have you there to yell at me about it afterward. Every time. That night, when the healers finally left us alone, I curled up carefully beside him in the bed. I thought I'd lost you, I whispered. When you went down, when he was on top of you, I thought that was it. So did I. He stroked my hair with his good arm, but then I thought, I haven't told her everything yet. Haven't shown her the winter festivals, or introduced her to the northern packs, or taken her to see the ice caves at the kingdom's edge. So much I still want to do with you. Then you better heal fast, because I want to see all of it. Deal. He was quiet for a moment. Seraphine. Today proved something. Not just that I'm strong enough to rule, but that we're strong enough. Together. No one can argue anymore that you're my weakness. They'll find other things to argue about. That's what courts do. Let them. He pulled me closer. I meant what I said in the circle. I love you. Not because you saved me, or because you broke a curse, or because you're strategically valuable. I love you because you chose to sit in the dark with a dying wolf when you could have done literally anything else. Best decision I ever made. Really. Even though it led to death matches and politics and people constantly judging you. Especially because of that. I kissed him gently. Because all of that means I matter. That my choices have weight. That I'm not just surviving anymore. I'm living. Then let's keep living. His eyes were drifting closed, exhaustion and healing taking over. Together, for a very long time. Forever, I whispered. But he was already asleep. His breathing deep and even. I lay there in the dark, listening to his heartbeat, feeling the warmth of his body against mine. Outside, the kingdom was celebrating their king's victory. Tomorrow, we'd face new challenges. Malachar would recover, other kingdoms would test us, politics would continue. But tonight, we'd won. Not just the fight, not just the territories. We'd won the right to choose each other, to face whatever came next as partners. The broken songbird and the frost king. Together. And that was worth more than all the kingdoms in the world. Epilogue. 1 year later. The winter festival was even more beautiful than Solon had described. The entire capital was transformed ice sculptures glittering in the squares, musicians playing on every corner, the smell of spiced wine and roasted chestnuts filling the air. Wolves from all 5 kingdoms had come to celebrate, to see the Frostlands restored to glory, to see their king, whole and happy, dancing with his queen. I still wasn't entirely comfortable with that title, Queen. It felt too grand for a girl who'd spent most of her life hiding in libraries, but Solon had insisted, and eventually I'd stopped arguing. Besides, I'd learned that being queen didn't mean being perfect. It meant being present, making choices, standing beside Solon as we navigated the complicated reality of ruling a kingdom. Stop thinking, Solon said, spinning me through the dance. You're supposed to be enjoying the festival. I am enjoying it. You're making your worried face. I don't have a worried face. Your eyebrows do this thing, he demonstrated, making me laugh. See? Much better. Keep laughing, less worrying. The music swelled around us, and I let myself sink into the moment. Into the warmth of the celebration, the joy of the crowd, the solid presence of Solon's arms around me. We'd survived so much to get here. The curse, the politics, the death match, a dozen smaller crises. We'd proven ourselves again and again, not just to the kingdoms, but to each other. And somewhere along the way, I'd stopped feeling like I was pretending to belong. I did belong. Here, with him, in this life we'd built together. What are you thinking about? Solon asked softly. How far we've come. How different everything is from that first night in the frozen cavern. Better or worse? Better. Definitely better. I smiled up at him. Though I do miss some things about those nights. The quiet, the simplicity. Just you and me, and nothing else mattering. We can have that. He pulled me closer. Later, when the festival ends and the nobles stop demanding attention, we'll go down to the cavern, the one we've turned into a library now, and I'll listen to you read stories until we fall asleep. Perfect. The song ended, and the crowd applauded. Solon kissed me there in front of everyone, not a formal political kiss, but a real one. The kind that said, I choose you. Still. Always. When we separated, I saw Thaddeus approaching with a familiar figure beside him. My father. I tensed, but Solon's hand on my back steadied me. Alpha Garrett, Solon greeted formally. Welcome to the festival. Your Majesty, Your Highness. My father bowed to both of us. Then to me. Seraphine. You look radiant. Thank you. Awkward silence stretched between us. We'd exchanged letters over the past year. Slow attempts at rebuilding something that might eventually resemble a relationship, but it was still strange, still complicated. Dahlia sends her regards, he said finally. She had another daughter, healthy and strong. I'm glad. Tell her I'm happy for her. I will. He hesitated. I'm proud of you. I know I have no right to say that after everything, but watching you stand beside the king, seeing how far you've come, your mother would have been proud too. Emotion clogged my throat. Thank you. I'll let you return to the celebration. He bowed again and melted back into the crowd. You okay? Solon asked. Yeah. I leaned into him. It's still complicated, but it's better than it was. That's enough for now. It's more than enough. The music started again, and we danced through the night, surrounded by the kingdom we'd fought for, the people we'd protected, the life we'd chosen. Later, true to his word, Solon led me to the old cavern. But it wasn't frozen anymore. We'd transformed it into something new. A library, yes, but also a sanctuary. A reminder of where we'd started and how far we'd come. I read to him from one of my favorite books, a fairy tale about a girl who sang to monsters and learned that love was the most powerful magic of all. Sound familiar? Solon murmured. A little. Do they live happily ever after? The book doesn't say. It ends with them choosing each other. Everything after that is just life, messy and complicated and full of challenges. Good. He pulled me closer. Because happily ever after is boring. I'd rather have messy and complicated with you than perfect with anyone else. You're such a romantic. You made me this way. He kissed my temple. Thank you. For what? For singing to a dying wolf, for choosing to stay, for teaching me that being broken doesn't mean being worthless. He turned to face me fully, for showing me that sometimes the best stories don't have endings, they just have new beginnings. Is that what this is? A new beginning? It's whatever we make it. He smiled. Together. Together. I echoed. And there, in the library that had once been a prison, wrapped in each other's arms, we started writing the next chapter of our story. Not a fairy tale with a neat ending, just two people who'd chosen each other, again and again, for the rest of their lives.